everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Tetracast. This is RPG Site's weekly podcast where we get the site staff together to talk about our favorite genre of video games. I'm your host. My name is Brian Vitale. Joining me, we have Josh Torres.
What a week once again.
We have Mikhail Mednani.
Hello.
Adam Vitale.
Hiya.
That was interesting. Hiya. James Galizio.
Hey, folks.
And Chow Min Woo.
How's it going?
If you are tuning in to this podcast, we will not be breaking the news to you that the Nintendo Switch 2 was detailed and dated this week. However, that will be the focus of this podcast because obviously we were expecting it. We just came off the regular version of the Nintendo Direct last week. This week, we have everything to talk about Nintendo Switch 2. And to kind of lead us off on that, because we have a ton of things to talk about, new announcements, the hardware itself, some information about pricing, about regions, about first-party ports, about third-party ports. We're going to be trying to touch on all of it. And I know individually, there's been a lot of Treehouse streams, there's been a lot of trailers, there's been a lot of news directly from Nintendo, there's been a lot of news from third-party publishers. So we're going to kind of synthesize that all together, in some cases in real time, quote unquote, because we're all coming in having focused on different things, from the new IPs to the announcements from the Direct directly. But to kick that all off, we're going to hand the microphone off to Adam to kind of start out, because Adam had the opportunity, and this is a pretty rare opportunity, to go to New York this week and kind of be there on the ground floor, sponsored by Nintendo, as the Switch 2 was announced, and go hands-on.
He went on a secret trip. This was like mega embargoed until like we didn't know until he was there.
I saw him skeet out. Anyone else here in New York? And then he had to delete it. I assume the ninjas got him. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, the only reason I knew is like literally at GDC we were talking about it a bit, and that was the only time I really heard about it. So
Adam, I think this is the first of its kind for you, and obviously you covered like GDC for us, Summer Games Fest for us, but not something specifically sponsored by a platform holder, I don't believe. So just tell us, like, ramp up about your trip in general, specific. You don't have to go into like announcing the Switch 2 like details. We'll go into that, but just talk about like your trip specifically and kind of what you got to see there. And we can kind of play it by ear in terms of like what is the most important in your mind versus what we can kind of push to later. But yeah, just tell us all about your time in New York this last week.
Yeah, so about a month ago, I got an email from the Nintendo PR basically saying, you're invited to our Switch 2 kind of launch or announcement launch media event. You are not allowed to tell anyone except your direct editor. So in our case, that would be Alex. And he went to a similar event on the European side in Paris. So there was an event in New York and an event in Paris for the Western media, right? And so there's this event going on April 2nd when they were doing this announcement. And it was actually kind of funny going to New York because no one could talk about this. So like no one knew who was going to be there. Like probably people I know, like from other outlets or whatnot, but no one could talk about it. How many people are going to be there? It's kind of fun. I saw a handful of people on Twitter, including me, or social media in general, just saying like, I'm going on a flight, or I'm headed to New York for no reason at all.
Reasons.
Or just because. I think actually one of the most amusing ones I think was like Dan Rickert is he still Giant Bomb or is he do his own?
Yeah, he's Giant Bomb. Yeah,
okay.
And GameSpot. So yeah.
And he's just like, I'm in New York to make sure this building's still here from some movie. Just like, oh, really? Okay.
Oh, damn.
Anyways, so like I get there, and obviously there's a lot of people I recognize there from Summer Game Fest or E3s of yore or whatever. And yeah, so we didn't know ahead of time what was going to be shown or anything like that. We didn't get like, we're going to show this, and get embargoed information. No, we didn't know. None of us knew. So basically, we went into a theater room to watch the Direct live. It's kind of fun seeing that sort of announcements in real time and see the reactions like from an audience during this thing. Like, for example, we're watching the Direct, big cheer at the Mario Kart cow. Huge cheer. for the cow.
Wait, this viewing, was it like in like some sort of theater, or was it?
It was not really a theater. It was kind of just like a little. It was like a mini auditorium with just like not even like theater seats. They were just little fold chairs or whatever.
Like a panel room,
right?
at
Yeah,
like
nothing
a con.
fancy.
Okay.
Okay. But yeah, we got to watch the direct together. Big cheers at the cow in Mario Kart.
I love how
what?
like later on, like Rebecca Valentine over at IGN like reached out and was like, "So we noticed that you can like eat burgers in the new Mario Kart. Does that mean that the cow can eat burgers and steak?" And the answer is yes.
Oh god.
Yeah.
Probably one of the funniest parts of the watching the live stream, and I saw this online too, was when they went from Deltarune to Randy Pitchford.
Oh no, I forgot that's how it was.
I love how like every single person on my timeline is like, this should be a crime to go from Deltarune to Randy Pitchford's face.
Yeah, he's been making that media tour for Borderlands 4 all over the place.
Big laugh at the Welcome Tour game being a paid game. Everyone, when they show that,
Everyone was laughing.
kind of like a lot laugh or a scoff, like, what? Why is this paid? Like, like same sort of response that people had online, I'm sure.
Yep.
And like when they got to the end of the direct, people kind of like muttering to each other, like, did they say how much it was going to cost? Like, they didn't say that, did they? Huh? That's weird, right? So that was kind of strange, right?
I thought they were gonna leave the price for later when they skipped it out of the direct, but no, it was in the press release which they sent out. So
Yeah, so
they
I
They
think
almost immediately had to like redact.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. But it's interesting because from a logistical perspective, like it makes sense because you would want to keep the price out of that presentation just in case it leaks any part of it. Like that would be the crucial part you don't want to leak at all. In the off chance that any parts of it got leaked. And also like think about the when it was produced as well. So like they might have been at a point where like they just maybe finalized that price maybe not that long ago, and this video would have been long done since then. So I thought about it for a bit. I was like, that's really weird that they would admit it, but at the same time, it's like when you think about it logistically, production wise, this makes a lot of sense.
Absolute dead silence when they showed Hogwarts. Like the quietest theater part.
I feel like that's kind of been the universal response ever since like you see like Hogwarts get ported to other platforms. Like it just anytime it shows up in a presentation, it's like, oh, this game existed. That's right. Even though it sold really well, it just like
it's like the quietest 10 million seller ever, at least from my perspective. Like,
wasn't it like 20 million sold at this point?
Maybe. Yeah, it sold a lot. So, but like just but like the response online because people know it was like.
So there was a really cruel part of this presentation is they were playing music in the kind of the theater room little lounge area that we were all waiting in before the direct, and the Golden Sun battle theme came on, and I was actually there with some Nintendo Life people, just hanging out with them. Alana, who used to write for RPG Fans, so she's a big RPG nut. I'm like, that's the Golden Sun theme, right? And she's like, that definitely is the Golden Sun battle theme. And we're like, that seems weird. Like, that's not something that would show up in a regular, like, just Nintendo themed random playlist, right? This is either very cruel or a clever tease. Maybe not so clever.
It's a reminder that not everything is a hint.
Yeah, but
Like, sort of thing.
Out of all things, the Golden Sun battle theme, like, come on. So obviously,
like sometimes you see that, like, where a platform holder will tweet something and they'll reference, maybe like a semi-obscure character, like, oh, they're going to remaster that. Like, no, they might just be.
It makes you think about the logistics of like who is behind the scenes putting together like the playlist of like the ambiance theme. It's like who is that person? Because I gotta talk to them on why they did this. I have a lot of questions for them.
I think people are just too brainwashed from watching Smash trailers when you hear like the motives on like popular video games.
Oh.
We were kind of like talking to ourselves. No, obviously we knew it might not be anything, but like it's been 3 years since Camelot released a game. What have they been working on? They did the golf game.
It was Tennis Aces?
Or
no, golf, yeah.
I think the golf game was later, right? I forget.
Both.
But yeah, it's like, it's been a few years. So what are they working on? And I guess the answer is we still don't know. So yeah, we watched the direct. Obviously, everyone's checking their phone for like press release and website and things like that, trying to get
Around
like,
how many
more
people were at
details.
that viewing where you were?
In New York, maybe like 50 to 60 to 70, maybe. It was a fair amount.
Okay.
Like so a lot of outlets actually got 2 people or maybe 3. Our outlet only got 1. But yeah, it was a fair amount of people. Several dozens anyway. And then after we watched the direct together, we basically were in like groups. We were put into groups and got to go demo some of the games that were shown. And we'll talk about obviously some of the stuff that was announced and shown in a bit here. So the very first game I got to play was Mario Kart World. That's obviously like a huge flagship game for the Switch 2. Showing off, we did a couple of different races, like the more standard races, as well as the new knockout mode and things like that. So it looks great, it runs great, it feels great. I played with Toad with the burger hat, or he's got like the burger on top of his little toadstool hat.
Yeah.
In the monster truck, of course. Toad the monster truck with a burger hat.
Hyper optimized.
Yes.
For speed.
So did a normal race. We did the knockout mode, which the knockout mode is basically like 24 racers, right? And you basically go on like a long like track. I actually saw some people commenting about this online. Were like, look at these maps of these racetracks. They're all just linear lines, right? And it's like, that's different and new. It's like, well, I think that's mostly the knockout mode, where it is kind of like a big, not an obstacle course, but it's just like a big, it's not like a circular racetrack as you typically see. It's kind of like a big path that you're going on. And at certain checkpoints, like the first checkpoint, it's like, you got to be under a racer, you got to be within 20th place or better.
Oh, it's like fitting out people at certain
to get past this.
Okay.
And at the next checkpoint, it's like you have to be 16th or better, 12th or better. And then you get to the end. So it is a path. It's a little different than like the laps around a racetrack, right?
Okay.
And I actually won the match I was in. Got first place with Burger Toad.
Mario
The
Kart
first
God
Switch 2
Gamer.
winner.
Adam.
Yeah.
What was actually kind of funny was the kind of weird but also amusing but also funny was they had a bunch of like Nintendo employees and probably just event staff there, kind of like operating all the systems and kind of demoing things and whatnot. And he was like cheering the whole time, kind of annoying. And he's like, I was living vicariously through you, man. And I'm like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever, dude.
So
what I saw was really fun, like from the footage that they showed, like you can like grind on rails.
Yeah.
In this one.
Yep. There's some paths where you can go on rails, or there's even like wall hops. I did a few of those. I didn't quite know like the mechanics there. I'm like, oh, I somehow wall hopped off this wall into the next part of the race. There's also like so like before the knockout mode, there was like kind of like a waiting room in the game where you could drive around the map in like the open world kind of exploration part of this game. And didn't get to see a whole lot of this, but like there were stuff to find in the world. There's like, oh, here's the coin with Peach's head on it, Princess Peach's head on it. I'm not sure what this does. And I think you could unlock like outfits and things. I'm not entirely sure. There was just like stuff to find in the open world. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm sure people have looked into different footages and whatnot about what's out there. But like, it's kind of weird. That's not really what you'd expect from a Mario Kart game. It's like drive around the world, and if you kind of go behind this little lodge and this path, you might be able to find a secret or something.
That's
a
what
collectible.
I'm interested about, because when they were showing it and they showed like, hey, this will actually have like seamless open world exploration in a Mario Kart game. Like that's sort of weird. But I was wondering like if there's any sort of like merit, like what do you get out of exploration and all this stuff. I guess that makes a lot of sense. Of like part of that exploration is like unlocking cosmetics, because that was like one of the big things that the announcement trailer for that emphasized. Like, hey, like all these racers will have different outfits. Like, yeah, different outfits each, for example, shown off in the trailer. So that'd be kind of fun and interesting. Like, hey, that you earn more cosmetic options for the racers by just like their collectibles now, in the open world.
It kind of reminds me a little bit of like the more recent Lego Star Wars games or Lego whatever IP games, where you have like your bespoke levels, but you also have like the hub that you can just like run around and get stuff. And yeah, usually the rewards are cosmetic sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that's how you unlock your burger hat for your cow. Is that you gotta find it.
At first glance, I thought they were going to go for like a Burnout Paradise angle. Like, where's the billboards I can smash through in this open world? You know?
I hope there's no battle pass, like seriously, because the Splatoon 3, I forgot what they call it in Splatoon 3, the pass which they do each season is super annoying and grindy. And
Mhm.
obviously they don't let you buy levels like every other game, but it was so grindy I just gave up after the first one and never bothered with it. But given when they showed costumes for this one, I thought, is that gonna be what we're doing in this game? But I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I mean they've already had like legacy because there used to be a Mario Kart mobile game that I forgot it.
Yeah.
It's no longer in service, but there's still like an offline version, I think, and like but that, when it was still like ran as a live service, had like I think a gotcha or cosmetics.
CD fell into that for a while. Mario Kart Tour.
That's right.
Mhm.
So yeah. But I have very complicated feelings. I think a lot of people have very complicated feelings about this new Mario Kart game because of the pricing of it as they announced that like and I think this caught everyone pretty much blindsided like hey, Mario Kart World is going to be sold for $80 USD as like that's the base price for it. And it's like, okay, so Nintendo's leading the charge now, bumping up the price of games
Yeah, that
once
just seems
more.
so weird because it was like not like I think we all kind of expected $70 is
It
your
was
premium price point
Yeah.
for
it wasn't even
a
2
box
years
video
ago that
game.
they said, "Oh yeah, we're making like Tears of the Kingdom $70, but it's going to be a game by game basis." And it's like, okay, so you're jumping from that all the way to $80 to make the bundle seem more appealing that now you're going to have to change the price for anyways. It's like,
Yeah, Adam,
God.
on the shop floor, I saw you kind of skeet about this. Just like people's take, because obviously they didn't announce the prices directly, so everyone even there was learning as we learned it.
Yeah.
From translating from the converting from the yen, learning it from different third parties. Like it was kind of a scattershot of multiple pieces of information at the same time in a very inconsistent manner. So, like, what was the takeaway at the event when this started filtering through?
No, there is some general confusion. Like, we're looking, for example, I'll talk about it in a bit, like looking at Zelda running on the floor, people asking each other, like, did they say how much the upgrade costs? And like, I don't think so. Did they? Like, oh, they made the Japanese price says 1,000 yen for Breath of the Wild, but I don't think they have it in dollars yet. And it comes with the Nintendo Switch Online subscription with the expansion pack, but only some games. There was some like general confusion and just
There is
because
still some general
right.
confusion too, like up to this time of recording as well, because as you said, like the Japanese listing, it's like specific, like, it's 1,000 yen for just like the general like Nintendo Switch 2 enhancements, like but it has like no new content to them, and it's like 2,000 yen for upgrades that have like content with them, which is like the Zelda Notes app
Kirby.
or
No.
Kirby.
The Zelda,
No,
the
oh,
Zelda
the
thing
Zelda
is the
South yen.
1,000 yen.
Yeah, Zelda's
Okay,
actually
Zelda thing is
cheaper.
1,000. Yeah, but
okay, sorry,
Kirby is
even I'm
2,000
confused.
and Mario Party are 2,000. But the thing is, they haven't announced the US prices. And like we have the 80 US, we have the Mario Kart price, but apparently Canada doesn't even have that. They just have some of the accessories listed, maybe, and they're just going like they're extrapolating out based on what Xseed has put up for Daemon X Machina and the Rune Factory and Story of Seasons game because Nintendo has not put up pricing for any first party stuff yet for Canada. And I think the uncertainty and lack of any info around this stuff is causing a lot of problems online for them and for everyone. But we'll get to that.
And
Okay.
also, and again, just lots of information. So let me check with the consensus here. Donkey Kong Bonanza. We're not really going to talk about it because it's not really an RPG, but it was probably their big flagship later in the year announcement, their surprise under wraps announcement. I guess Mario Kart Tour as well. Only $70, right? Like Donkey Kong and Mario Kart were different prices, if I remember right, and it seemed
Yes.
very strange. Like, why
Yeah,
And
why
there
would they
$10
be
cheaper
different?
digitally.
it was there, like
Yeah,
a kind of a big point of confusion on the like just a point of comparison on the floor that I heard. It's like you can buy the Kirby game, and yes, you're buying it new for Switch 2. If you don't already own it, it's $80. Or you can buy like the brand new Donkey Kong game, and it's $70. That seems kind of weird. Like this
Yeah,
game is 3 years
it's
old, but it's more expensive than this brand new one. And yes, no, it's a new version, and yes, if you already own it, it's not you don't have to pay an upgrade price to get Kirby, although we don't know exactly what that is in English in US dollars. So yeah, there was
The way I
definitely confusion on the
remember
floor.
I remember when people would complain that like re-releases for Nintendo games, ports would have would be like full price, and people were like, "Man, this game is several years old. Why is it still full price even if there's new content?" Now it's like that's the worst. That's the least of our problems. Kirby's $80 if you want to get the Switch 2 version of it, and it's like, really? Are we really
Okay,
there?
here's something I want to know, which I don't think they've confirmed yet. So Breath of the Wild Nintendo Switch 2 edition is going to be 70 US, right? That's $10 more. I assume, like we're all assuming, it's going to be a $10 upgrade. Have they said anything whether the DLC is included? Because all signs point to it not being included. So you're going to have to pay what, 20 or 25 on top of that to get the DLC as well
Wait, for which game? Sorry.
for Breath of the Wild.
The Champions
Yeah,
Ballad.
I forgot
Yeah.
about those. Yeah.
Because Tears of the
Tears of the
Kingdom had
Kingdom
no
never got
DLC.
one, right?
No,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good
I don't know.
question. We don't know. Do
Like
not
everything
know.
else, just kind of like we can guess or speculate, but we don't know until
Yeah.
we know.
Yeah,
And I get-
I guess this is like the best time to bring it out since we're like amidst all this confusion of like all the like the post direct messaging is like the confirmed facts we know for sure is this console is launching on June 5th, for
Mhm.
all the territories that they announced, simultaneously worldwide. As of this moment, it's obviously going to be subject to change, potentially, due to some developments that we're gonna get into. But we know the U.S. pricing for this is $450 US, standard edition, and then it's $500 when you bundle it with Mario Kart World. There's like another SKU bundled with Mario Kart World for $500, and then initially they were supposed to open up pre-orders in the U.S. on April 9th, but then after the president of the United States announced new tariffs worldwide internationally, that same night, the very next day, there was some messaging from Nintendo saying, "Hey, because of the new evolving situation about these announced tariffs from the U.S., they have delayed pre-orders in the U.S., so it's going to miss its original April 9th date, starting pre-orders in the U.S. to an unspecified time frame at this time. So we don't know when they're going to open up pre-orders now in the U.S. There are some territories that have already started opening up pre-orders. I think Australia did, and
Europe did.
Europe. Did Japan also open up
I
pre-orders or
saw
not yet?
some folks on my timeline complaining about the lottery crashing last night. So I think that they
Oh,
were
okay.
supposed to, but it might have had some technical difficulties.
Okay,
I don't
so
know
there are some territories that are already taking pre-orders, but not U.S. And then there's also another wrinkle in this, where specifically in Japan, where the Switch to Japan will have two SKUs. One will be like a Japan-only version of the console, priced at 49,980 yen, which roughly converts into $343 US. This is as of the PC Mag's article on it, who have done the conversions on this. And the Japan-only SKU of this means that there's only going to be the Japanese language on it. So like only Japanese menus. You can only access the Japanese region eShop on it. It's very locked down to like, hey, if you're a resident of Japan, this is the version that you want. There's also another SKU of Switch 2 being sold in Japan, but that's kind of the global multi-language version of it, and that'll be priced at 69,980 yen, which is roughly about $480 US. And this is both to combat the weak yen and also because of scalpers. Because if they were to open up that cheaper option at multi-language, of course scalpers would be importing it frivolously.
Yeah,
to
because like the alternative would have been to do what Sony did and raise the price of the system in Japan, like full sale.
Mm.
But they decided no, the best thing to do, because obviously Japan is, I was gonna say it was gonna be their second biggest market, but after all the stuff of tariffs, probably the biggest market. And it just makes sense for them to ensure that there's enough like there for the domestic audience to be able to
Yeah.
actually buy a system.
Absolutely, yeah, that's very
Because
important.
my Switch OLED, the imports which you get over here are from they come from all over the place, but mine specifically was a Japanese unit, and it was cheaper to buy that than buy it locally in the US. So that does happen.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing is like they are offering a cheaper, a Japan language locked model, but the game pricing has gone up quite a bit in Japan. Like I believe I was talking to a friend of mine over there, and I believe if you Mario Kart, the new one, Mario Kart World, might be 4,000 yen more than what you could get 8 Deluxe for at retail. It was something like
That's crazy. Wow.
5,500 on Amazon right now, and the new one is apparently going to be around 9,500. So
Oh,
that's like a huge jump for them.
yeah.
And there are no vouchers this time, right? With the Switch, you could get 2 vouchers for 10,000 yen. And if you convert that to dollars, that works out to like $67 for 2 vouchers, which is amazing compared to like $100 plus tax and all that. So yeah, Mario Kart, it literally costs almost as much as, the Yakuza or like the full Atlas expensive games. They're always more expensive than the other. So your Nintendo games are now reaching that price. That's crazy.
Yeah. The the pricing is insane. So yeah, and for people who are thinking like, oh, well, I can just easily still get the Japan only model if I can read and speak Japanese and whatnot. But you would also need like a secure payment processor, um, to buy that
That's not
console. That's what
necessarily well, yeah. Well, actually, no.
I thought they were locked out to like just credit cards, like native Japan credit cards on
So
that.
the way it works is that if you want to get the international model in Japan, that's exclusive to the My Nintendo store, which means you will need to have a Japanese credit card. The Japanese only system is the standard in Japan and is the one that regular shops like Amazon Japan will have. So if you
Oh,
like went
so that's
so
weird.
if
That feels like it's reversed. Okay.
yeah. So if you went to Japan, you could buy a Japanese unit like after launch, and there theoretically would be nothing stopping you, assuming like no actual like specific things that individual retailers are doing. But the main thing is again that Nintendo account, like the region locking thing. The thing that I'm interested about is that the exact verbiage says that you can only connect an account to that Japanese only Switch 2 model if it's a Japan region account. But one thing that I think people maybe forgot about from when the Switch came out is that if you don't have any currency in your eShop, like if you have no currency in your eShop, you can actually go into your Nintendo account settings and change the region for it. Does that mean if you connect a Japan region account to like that Switch 2, you could then change it back and then use it just fine, or what would be the situation there? I
Yeah,
don't
I
think we
think
know yet.
yeah, I don't think it's gonna be hard to
This
confirm that until
calls for like
people.
a science
Yeah,
experiment.
I'm sure people are gonna definitely test that out when they get their hands on
So
one that launches.
I don't think there's 100% confirmation on that, but from I was talking to some people in Japan and what they've heard, like this is obviously not official stuff because they've been talking to like their friends and retailers and like offhand stuff. Apparently, if you like, so the games are always multi-language for Nintendo, like most of them are. Apparently, if you what I believe is going to happen is if you insert the multi-language cartridge, which is like Mario Kart World from the US or even the Japan one, it'll only display the Japanese thing on that console. It can detect that, is what people are speculating as well. Because, like right now, if you buy
um,
Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive, it has all the languages on cartridge. So that's what they're saying might happen. That would probably fix this, like prevent what you want to, like what you said people could do, I guess.
yeah. The main thing is that even the verbiage on the site is Nintendo being very clear that a lot of games will default to the system language, but some will also let you change languages in game. And that is
Oh,
something,
okay.
yeah. So in those cases, you'll be able to play a game in English or any other language it supports. But obviously, if the game defaults to the system language and the system
Yeah.
language itself is locked to Japanese, then there's nothing you can do about that. Though I'm curious how they have that set up because yeah, I do wonder because the other thing that gets me is that technically like Switch game cards can have update data on the game card, what if you got like say a Switch 2 exclusive that was like an English version of it and had the English update file? Would that install the English update file and like somehow like get around the system lock then? Or like how would that work?
Yeah, this is all stuff which I think we're gonna have to wait for someone to get their hands on the console or for Nintendo to update like support articles and stuff. But I think the lack of information is just gonna lead to all of us just speculating until there's more info.
Hmm.
Not a good position to be in for them right
Another
now, is all I'll say.
another wrinkle in all of this is they've introduced this new game key system for physical copies. Now, game keys have they have a cartridge in them, but they don't necessarily have game data in them. These are cartridges you insert in the console, and then you'll actually download the data, game data, onto your system digitally. And none of that game data is in these cartridges. They're just game keys to allow you to download the data in them. Now, this is not like
This is
it-
literally the same thing that Microsoft was suggesting
Yeah.
with the Xbox One. It is
No,
the
no,
exact
so
same thing because the
so
whole thing with the original Xbox One idea was that the disc itself was just the license for a download. That's literally the same thing.
But
Literally the
not
same
all
thing.
Switch games are doing this, right? Because some do have just
yeah,
standard data on the cart,
specific.
right?
It's only specific Switch 2 titles. It's not all of them.
Yeah.
And it's like there's language on the box that
yeah.
clearly say that like it is a game key, not a game cartridge you're getting, or rather
So
a cartridge of game data.
I have some mixed feelings about this because I've bought a lot of third-party Switch 1 games, and many of them, they have the download required banner on the front, like Mortal Kombat 1, Mortal Kombat 11, even Final Fantasy 10 HD Remaster you had to download Final Fantasy 10 2 on it. So what they've done is they've essentially cut down even that so that like this is 100% going to be how EA, FC, Madden, and like NBA and all ship because what they used to do is NBA used to ship like 2 GB or 3 GB on the cartridge. They used to use the cheapest cartridge available for Switch 1 and make you download like 30 GB or 40 GB or even more sometimes. So now it's just going to be like, here's your NBA license on a key card. Or is that what it's called, right? Key card or is it key cartridge or something? I already forgot.
Key card,
But
yeah.
yeah, so they're gonna just make you download the whole thing. So what this does is it's one step above a code and box because you can actually like trade this in or lend it to people and stuff like that. But because of how expensive Switch cartridges are in general to make, we're already seeing publishers cheap out on this. Like, why is Bravely Default like a 3DS game remaster not even shipping complete on the cartridge? But you have Cyberpunk, which is like they're proud of it. Like they did it with The Witcher 3 as well. They used a 32 GB cart and shipped the full game on it back on Switch 1.
Yeah.
And now they're
That-
using a 64 GB cart and shipping, at least with English language. I think other languages they said you need to download separately, which is fair enough. But and there's that Konami game, I forgot the name. I saw the listing on a Singapore pre-order site. It's a
Was it a
3
Shine
GB game.
Post? Was it Shine Post?
No, not that. Something Strikers, Konami, or maybe I was misreading the name. But yeah, there's some Konami game which it says 3 GB download and a key card. Like, what are we doing at this point if you can't even ship like I'm sure the smallest cartridge size is like 4 GB or something. Like, what are we doing here that this is setting like a bad precedent? And the problem with this is Sega announced 5 games for Switch 2. They didn't announce whether they're all getting physical, whether they are going to be like upgrades and stuff like that. It's a whole mess right now. And like, I'm just looking at my Switch library at home. I have so many physical games, and it's given the price increases for some games. I just don't know if the Switch 2 is even going to approach it by end of life. Like, if I'll have even 1/5 as many physical games at this rate. Because what's the point of buying a key card thing? I'll just like play the game digitally. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think the one like interesting counterpoint to this of like the benefits of this is like a much like let's say a smaller scope indie title um opts for a game key card because maybe like this getting a key card is substantially cheaper than like getting like a full on cartridge, getting your game data on it. It's like it's generally less resources on your development. and such. So at least they'll have a way for people to like own that game physically, even though not all the game data is on that cart, and they'll have like a shelf retail space presence
Yeah,
on
that's what
there.
I was kind of thinking. Is like this indie game, which would have otherwise been digital only, which is pretty common. Like, no, at least this gives us an option to give you the game physical in some manner, which is
Yeah.
slightly different than here's Bravely Default from tiny indie publisher Square Enix sort of thing.
Yeah, so I think that's like the small like thin line on that, like where like yeah, I can see why they would do that, but also there's like a lot of like counterpoints on the other side, like like bigger publishers will exploit the shit out of this,
Yeah.
Mm.
naturally. So it's it is at least a step above just a box and a download code, like Mikhail said, but
Yeah.
it's still not ideal. Like, it doesn't feel great, especially like if you're a physical collector for preservation purposes. You want to like feel like you own the game. And
Oh, and
that is definitely separate from
speaking of
that.
that, the Nintendo Switch edition, so Nintendo Switch 2 edition physicals, which they've announced, like when they said select games are going to be available digitally and physically, I thought, I actually own three different versions of Breath of the Wild. I have the Japan version, the US version, and I got the UK version because it had the different box art, and I really love the game. And I said, okay, I guess I'm buying Breath of the Wild again. But then there's more confusion on Switch 2 editions now for these games because there's an implication that it'll be the Switch 1 cartridge, but you'll
With the
have a
download
code for
code
the
for
upgrade.
the yeah.
Yeah, or is it going to have just the upgrade license on the cartridge, but it still has the Switch 1 data? But I think the thing we know for sure is this is not going to be the full Switch 2 game on cartridge. So that's another worthless release for me, at least. So and I gifted my nephew my copy of Kirby and the Forgotten Land physically because I had it digitally, and I thought, okay, this is gonna come with that new story content. It's $80, fine. It'll be a bit cheaper through like maybe Costco or something like that. Nope, it's just the Switch One game, and you're gonna have to like download it or redeem the code and stuff like that. So I'm not happy that Nintendo's doing this because when Sony did the $10 upgrades for like Gran Turismo 7, at least at that point, or like Ghost of Tsushima, the game was on disc over there. Like Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut has everything on disc. Death Stranding has everything on disc. The Nintendo stuff, you're paying $10 more, and it's not a full physical release. That's really bad. And
Yeah,
Nintendo's
Yeah.
like a company which reprints old games with the patches on cartridge. Like you can buy Pokemon Scarlet and Violet with the DLC now because there's an Asia version which has everything on cartridge, including the second DLC. When I was in Singapore last year, they had Mario Kart 8 with all the booster pack or booster pass, all the DLC on cartridge because Nintendo reprints this. Like my Ring Fit Adventure has all the patches on cartridge because I bought it like when the pandemic started. So this is like multiple steps back for Nintendo. But again, we need full confirmation on this right now. We're just speculating based on the box art and lack of clarification on the
yeah.
website.
Like this has been one of the most like chaotic like console announcements in
Yeah.
recent memory. Like there's a lot of like confusion and how all this stuff works. A lot of like wrinkles in the equation. Like, I apologize for like getting so far off course from like Adam's visit to New York and all of this as we got into like the Switch 2 details. So I figured it's just best to clarify it and get it all the way up, like what we know now before getting into the games and what they showed off and all that stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna think like we also learned as a related topic, like the Switch 2 will only support SD Express, which is SDXC, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've seen
Which I
some
think
people complain
if you
about
get most,
that,
go
but
ahead.
I've seen some people complain about that, but it's like realistically, if they didn't have like that sort of requirement, it would just hamstring developers. And it's like, yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, it makes sense
And
because that
I
does
kind
have
of feel like if you
much
buy an
faster.
SD card, like it's gonna be an SD Express unless you've had it for like 10, 12 years,
No, no,
most
no.
new ones.
No, 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 it's not.
It's a very separate thing. Like the Switch 2 is the first thing that actually uses it, so there hasn't been any reason to buy SD Express until now.
Yeah. th- yeah. So, but yeah, I guess it definitely makes sense why Nintendo made that a mandatory because it is the SD Express is substantially faster
Oh.
read and write times than the normal
Maybe I
SD.
was just putting in my own like I bought a random SD card for a
No,
micro SD card for my Switch 4 years ago and an SDXC. So maybe I was just putting my own like perspective on that.
I think
they're
the
definitely
problem is because there's SD Express and then there's SD Extreme, and all these companies have like multiple SD cards. Like I have 5 different SD cards which I use across my handles, and some of them are Extreme, Extreme Pro, Pro Plus, Pro EXE, and stuff. But
Oh,
none
yeah,
of them are
all the different
actually
like
the
trade names. Yeah.
yeah. So none of them are actually the SD card Express, because I made sure to check that, and because I was talking to like looking to get my own Switch 2 for launch, and then I was like, I need to get one of these cards. Like, how much do they cost? And I was looking at like Wario 64 Skeets on Blue Sky, and it seems like it's about $150 or $200 for the 1 TB model, like for the 1 TB card. Sorry, and
that
I
feels like
have
that's substantially more expensive than the normal SD cards then, because I was about to ask
yeah,
like
it
how
is,
much
it
more
is,
expensive are the Express cards are. That seems
I
it
would
is,
say
but
in a normal economy that the price would drop as like the Switch 2's out. There's going to be more of a reason for companies to manufacture them. So at scale, you're going to have like lower prices, but that's all out the window now. So who fucking knows?
yeah. No kidding. No kidding. Um. Anyway, try to get back on course here, and we didn't even get to talk about like some of the new hardware features and software features that the Switch 2 had, and I'm curious to hear Adam's thoughts on it as he got to see them, live at New York.
Adam, how many
Both the
cameras did they have set up?
yeah, but
Sorry.
both the new C button, like the Nintendo introduced what the this mysterious C button on the controller finally does, and it's for game chat. So when they press it in the direct, it pops up like a Discord style like live stream interface where you can stream your game to other people, like up to 4 other people, and then they can stream their game up to you, and it's kind of Discord style the way that it's formatted, except that like you're seeing your game at full frame rate, and then when you see other people's feeds, it's like it was a bad demo of like how they showed this in the direct. Like the other people's like game stream feeds to you are like running at like 4 to 7 FPS, and you're like, yeah, it's cool that you're playing a video game. I can see that. I can see it frame by frame. On that. So and that has a camera support where they have like their own separate like Switch 2 camera that you can prop up by it. And then you can show yourself like with your face, your head streaming the game, to your friends. That's one of the new features that they announced, and also that the new Joy Cons with the Switch 2 can like be used as mouse controls, where you can like tilt it sideways and like kind of roll it independently, both left and right mouse controls. So Adam, you got to see these firsthand at New York. Tell us your impressions of what other people thought and what you thought on the C button and the mouse controls.
Well, we didn't actually get to see any of the game chat stuff, which kind of makes
Okay,
sense because we're all in the same room, basically. But mouse controls, Metroid Prime 4, pretty much everyone was actually kind of impressed with Metroid Prime. So, first of all, can you believe it's been 18 years since Metroid Prime 3? It's been a
don't
long
say
time.
God,
that.
please don't say that. Please.
2007. I had to look it up. Like, when did that come out? Like, yeah.
I'm turning to Ash.
So Metroid Prime 4 was it was a demo on the playable on the floor there. It was running in the performance mode, which is the 1080p 120 frames per second, which is like playing a Nintendo game at 120
I know.
FPS is like
Magical.
feels wrong, but it feels right. But it's so wrong, but it's so right. But so they actually had it set up with the Joy-Con, so I couldn't play Metroid Prime with the Pro Controller. They had some Pro Controllers there, but not Metroid Prime. I'm sure you can eventually, but they had it set up with the Joy-Cons. And if you played the Wii Trilogy version of Metroid Prime, the Joy-Cons feel really similarly to Remote and Nunchuck in terms of like, motion and aiming your Samus's arm gun and things like that. And that was pretty familiar to me, having played the Wii Trilogy, right? And it's like, yeah, I can do this. I'm used to this. I can do this. But then you can also take the Joy-Con and put it down on the table in front of you and basically control it like a mouse, like a PC shooter, right? Where you aim with your mouse and you use your left Joy-Con more for traditional controls, right? And Alex put it this way, and I stole his wording. It feels illegal, like playing Metroid Prime with a
And it's all
mouse.
seamless too. Like
Yes.
it's like in the middle of gameplay, you can just like tilt it, and then it'll automatically recognize, hey, you can use like mouse controls in this.
Yeah, and it works pretty well. And there were like I played basically the opening section, which wasn't really enough for me to like rock solid solidify, yes, this is how I'm going to play this game, because I was kind of playing around a bit, right? But
Yeah.
like there were times where I'm like, I can do this little door puzzle using the Joy-Con kind of gyro controls, right? And then maybe when I'm actually doing combat, I can use the mouse controls, and whatever you choose or whatever you decide, you don't need to go into a menu and toggle it on and off or anything like that. You can just set it down and it switches pretty quickly in terms of your controls. So, like it worked really well. I played a little bit of Civilization 7 on Switch, too. And how do I put it? You get used to it. The one thing that is takes a little bit of getting used to that's different than like a PC mouse is that obviously a Joy-Con is thinner than a mouse. And so like you have to be a little bit careful not to like wobble it. Like you can't, like your mouse in front of you right now, you can't like wobble it left and right. It's flat on your surface, but a Joy-Con you can. I imagine some peripheral accessory is going to be made where you can kind of attach it to the Joy-Con to make it like more like a mouse.
Like a mouse shell accessory.
Yeah, like a mouse shell or something to make it so you don't have to worry about wobble.
Makes sense.
But it's one of those things that like after a few minutes playing Civilization, I wasn't really thinking about it much anymore. But it is, something to keep in mind.
I heard about I heard like when the Nintendo representatives were describing the mouse controls. I heard this from Remap Radio several days ago, where there was like an emphasis on them, like you can use the Nintendo Switch 2 mouse controls, like even if there's no table in front of you, you can use it on your jeans. And they kept mentioning like you can use it on your jeans and multiple times. And I was wondering, like, did you catch that? Like, what did you were like? Man, they keep mentioning jeans.
Yeah,
with this mouse control.
I think they did say that, and I think the reason for that is like if you're playing on your couch or something, where you may not have a table in front of you. I was actually talking to Shannon from Inverse, and she was wearing like these jeans with like these like the seams on the jeans. I don't know what you call them. That are kind of getting in the way of your leg, and she was trying to control it on her leg, and it wasn't working very well. And she's like, "I'm not wearing the right pants for this."
Oh no.
But like it does work on some pants, and she was actually kind of joking, like we got to put up a guide for like what pants, like a pants tier list.
That's a really good guide idea.
Like what pants should you wear for playing with a mouse on Twitch 2? But
I love that.
Anyways, Metroid Prime 4 was actually, I don't know, is this am I allowed to say this on this podcast? It was probably my favorite demo. At the event.
Well, Adam, I don't know what the impression was there, but the trailer from last week was kind of muted, like the reception to it. Yeah. From last week. I mean, last week on the podcast when it was first shown for the Switch 1 Direct. But like, turns out all the impressions hands-on, I won't say all, that's a little bit absolute, but most of the impressions hands-on have been really kind of glowing for Metroid Prime 4.
Yeah, I mean, the demo that we played, first of all, just playing a Metroid Prime game at like full HD, 120 FPS, that just like feels and looks right? I know there was like the remaster of Metroid Prime 1, which works pretty well, but like otherwise, most Metroid Prime games you played before HD consoles, right? So
480p,
yeah,
FPS.
Exactly. And now I think the game also has like a 4K 60 mode. But anyways, it was very clearly the opening level, which it feels more like Metroid Prime 3 because you have like those soldier dudes kind of running around, and there's some dialogue and cutscenes, kind of like Metroid Prime 3, which I know some people weren't a fan of those. They want it to be completely silent, where you're just shoved on a planet and you go. Now, so obviously, just in a demo, I have no idea how like the world exploration works or anything like that, right?
I thought you were gonna say how talky the game is overall. Is it?
Well, that too.
Yeah,
but it's definitely reminiscent of Metroid Prime 3's like opening sections of that game, where there's a little bit of dialogue, there's a few cutscenes. I guess the story takes place after Metroid Prime Federation Force, which I've never played. Which is like that.
Oh, we gotta catch up on our.
Yeah, I need to catch up on this. Like, oh yeah, what happened here? I don't know. But anyways, so like, I don't know if this is just the opening mission, how like the larger structure of the game, how talky it is, like you said. But anyways, just like the controls, the look of it, you can press a button to go into scan mode and scan your enemies, scan things around the map, which is, that's very clearly Metroid Prime. I fought a boss guy. I forget what he's called, but he's like some big hulking brute thing that's kind of been taking Metroid steroids, like literally a Metroid like embeds himself into the brute thing, and you fight him. And like it was a fun boss battle, kind of like, oh, dodge left and right. Has got certain abilities that you kind of, like a Metroid Prime boss battle, right? And it felt right. So obviously, jury's still out on like how's the world exploration? Is it more like Metroid Prime 1 or is it more like Metroid Prime 3? Because those are a little bit different in how they're structured and things like that. But obviously that you can't really demo that. Not easily.
Right.
But in terms of like how it looks and how it feels and how it plays, like, yeah, I'm on board fully. So it's just more of the structure, story, whatever stuff that is like, who knows. But as a demo, really impressive demo. A lot of people who played it really liked it, especially with the mouse control, how well that seems to work, which is pretty darn well. I'm sure you can play it with a Pro controller.
Metroid Prime obviously came out on GameCube. Then it came out on the Wii with the Wii Motion Plus. I forget if it was bundled or later, and then it came out on the Switch, like remastered with the Joy-Con. And now it's coming out on, Metroid Prime 4, different games coming out on Switch 2 with the additional, mouse capability. But I'll probably just be a fossil and play it with a Pro controller.
Yeah, I probably will too.
Maybe my eyes haven't been opened yet.
I actually have a friend of mine was actually like telling me I've never liked dual analog type controls. He's never really liked it, so he actually prefers like the gyro controls and like the and mouse controls for shooters. So he's like, this is actually like really, really cool for him to hear that like I can play it with like a mouse basically, and so I think it's a really cool option to have that, and it seems to work really well.
Lots of options because I forgot controller plus gyro. That's not something we had on a GameCube. So you could do that as well.
Cool. Were you able to try out anything else in mouse besides Civ and Metroid?
No, those are the two. Oh, I did play Dragon Drive or Dragon Dunk whatever it was called.
The wheelchair basketball, Drag X Drive or Drag Cross.
Yeah,
Drive,
I think it says Drag X Drive, but it's actually said Drag and Drive. Like that's actually the title. But anyways, I played that. It's one of those things that's like it is fun, like tech demo-y type game. But in terms of like realistically, is this something I'm going to buy and play and put time into? Probably not. So like basically it's 3-on-3 wheelchair basketball, and they literally had us playing against each other. And I don't know if this is obvious or not, but this game is actually a little bit of a workout because you control everything like with the mouse controls, and like to move your character forward, it isn't just pressing W on a keyboard. It's literally like wheeling your mouse back and forth over and over again with both hands too. And then take a shot, you literally use the kind of the gyro controls to shoot the basketball and whatnot. And it was legitimately fun, like legitimately. But like it was fun for a match or two at a demo event. Like I don't know if it has any staying power, and will any other developer make anything that uses controls in this way? I'm doubtful. But it's kind of a tech demo-y type game that was fun in a very short burst.
Yeah, once again, it's like one of those things. It's like it's kind of the weird thing though, but like kind of the quote unquote gimmick of this Switch 2 now, because we're like the Switch 1 game is like, hey, it's a handheld and a home console in one. And it's like, okay, Switch 2 still has that, but like the new quote unquote gimmick now is like dual mouse controls on it. It's a weird thing. It's like I don't know how. Like it's conceptually potentially cool, but I don't know exactly how if a lot of people are gonna use it.
Yeah.
And to what extent? I think the coolest demo that we're about to talk about here that they showed off was they announced Bravely Default Flying Fairy HD Remaster in that Switch Direct, which is it's a remastered release of the first Bravely Default game that originally released on the 3DS. Which is cool, that's a really, really fun, solid turn-based RPG with a robust job class system. And the Bravely Default 2 came out, was a multi-platform game, and Bravely Second, it still remains as a 3DS exclusive, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and one of the things they showed off in this remaster is like there's new mini games on it that use mouse controls, like the two that they details, Ring a Bell's Panic Cruise and the Lux and Cheer Rhythm Catch. And they showed off the Panic Cruise minigame at the Treehouse gameplay thing several days after the direct, and it was like it's really cool because like it's a first person view of an airship control system, and they played on hard difficulty, and it's just like the four main party members like yapping in your ear, going like, "Hey, you have to like you know." The switch the radio frequency signal to this. You have to press the switches and like on off on in this order, and then you have to do this. And then there's like enemies flying at you, and then you're fully controlling this game with the two mouse controls on you. So you have to like kind of do all the flips and switches and all that stuff, and shooting all the enemies in your way while trying to like navigate your ship through rings, all just with mouse controls on it. So it's like a very panic multitasking sort of mini game that like you're getting juggled, 10 different tasks all at once, and you're just like trying to like kind of maintain the course as well. It's like, okay, that's like really cool to see. That looks frustrating, but like in a really fun way. Like I could see myself getting into, but it just makes me wonder, like how other developers will, if they utilize like this dual mouse system in other creative ways, because like that like it's a mini game. It's like it's gonna be novel for a bit, but you're not gonna be like gonna be hooked on it forever and all that stuff. And like the other features that they showed off, like with the remastered version of Bravely Default 1, was like you can now fast forward in cutscenes. So you can always manipulate game speed in the original game, but for gameplay, but for cutscenes it was always normal speed. But now you can fast forward through cutscenes. And also like one of the weird head scratchers on it was like in the original game you can manipulate the encounter rate between like turning them off completely in 0% or doubling them to 200%, because you still run into enemies like old school style, like through random encounters. It'll go from field screen to battle screen when you walk a certain distance, but you can turn that off in the 3DS version. But it seems like all the reports coming out of this version, what they've shown and said, is like you can only toggle that down now to 50%, and there's no way to completely turn off random encounters.
Oh, I didn't
There
catch
is.
the
I thought
remastered.
you can. I thought there's a 0% in there.
I heard and read that they can only the lowest setting on it was 50% now this time around.
Yeah, I
I
saw
And
saw
some
this.
screenshots of the Switch 2 version, and all of it just pointed to it being either 50 or 25. I already forgot, but there was clearly discussion about it not letting you turn it off. And also, they removed the Bravely Second tie-in stuff, I believe, from the Japanese web.
Oh,
Oh,
Huh.
that's interesting because like the version of Bravely Default we got actually had a lot of like additional features that were like deliberately like, hey, these are ideas that we have for Bravely Second that we're going to introduce into the game. And is this just going to be based off of the original release? Is this a Final Fantasy Pixel remaster type deal where it's only the
Oh, you
original?
do not want the original release. I'll tell you that. Okay, I do like the original release, but in the original release, you cannot skip enemy encounters. And then one of the things that is so brutal is like when Bravely Default happens, you know what I'm talking about. And it's like none of the scene changes, and you just keep repeating this shit over and over again, and everyone was bored out of their mind and couldn't finish their game.
And there's none of the
So
challenge battles, right?
no, there wasn't
The
there.
challenge battles are like the best part about that game, gameplay
But
wise.
they're
That I
not
was
there in the original release,
right.
so
Yes,
they're like
you're right.
asking their fan base, like, "Oh, how come only like 2% of the player actually like saw Chapter 8? They seem to all stop playing the game around Chapter 7." Like, I wonder
Yeah,
why.
and for people who don't know, like the one like there was a thing called Bravely Default for the sequel that was released in Japan after the base release, and then that for the sequel version was the base release in the overseas version that had like a lot of improvements and fixes and had tie-ins to the sequel, along with like more save slots, more difficulty levels, auto saving, and all that stuff. So that's weird. That's the first time I'm hearing that, like, oh, this might be not that version. It's not the for the sequel um version. It's like, okay, that's sort of weird. Yeah, but that doesn't necessarily mean that like it's not 100% confirmed yet what the final release of that game will be when it's finally in our hands. There might be some things, there might be not. I don't know. And also, as you were saying, Chow, the the option to not completely turn off random encounters is a little worrying, because like the last stretch of that game can get really repetitive and tedious, Especially if you
I,
didn't turn off, especially
yeah,
if you don't turn off random encounters in that game.
That's especially weird too because a lot of like Square Enix Final Fantasy modern ports have encounter toggles. Usually it's just
Yeah.
on or off, but still, it's like I literally just played through Final Fantasy 10 and 10-2. I know those games, those remasters came out quite a while ago now, but like you could turn them off, like if they were there. And I actually don't remember if the Pixel remasters allow
I'm
you to
trying to
turn
remember.
off.
Was there a job that like trying to reduce enemy encounter rates, and maybe they just felt like, oh, with this system, it's like this job becomes
Oh, like a
irrelevant,
job
and maybe
ability.
trying to like bring it back, like
I
forcing
don't know.
players to get the
Yeah,
ability so that
I'm
I
not
remember.
sure. Yeah. And you know, for
I would have investigated this for you guys, but it was not playable.
I wrote a
It's
guide
like,
on this. Okay, it's been so long that I don't remember every single detail. Some people blame me for having the pirates nerf back in the day because apparently I mistranslated one of the abilities, and then in English release or something, or for the sequel is like it got nerfed to shit, and people like we blame you, Chow.
yeah, way to go, Chow. But I mean,
So yeah,
either
just
way,
I think we buried the lead a little bit. It was announced releasing on June 5th. Currently only officially announced for Switch 2, though the press release language is very deliberate. HD Remaster redesigned to be played on modern consoles will be released exclusively for Nintendo Switch 2 on June 5th. So read into that what you will for Bravely
I think
Default
I'd
2.
put money on that
Or not
also
2,
releasing
Bravely
on
Default
Switch
HD
1.
Remaster.
I think I'd put money on that eventually releasing on Switch 1 as well as whatever else it would come to, because I feel like that's not really a game which you want to hold back. Like it'll easily run on the original Switch, right? Like it's a 3DS remaster. I think they probably just cut the frame rate to 30 or whatever and do stuff. It should be fine. But Adam did get to play another game, which we'll talk about soon, right? Another third party game.
Yeah, I was going to ask Adam, like, what other third-party stuff did you get to look at?
Before we get to the third party stuff, or I don't know, where do I want to take this?
So just one thing I wanted to mention. I did look up to see if I could find what the like original changes were between the original version of Bravely Default and for the sequel. So yeah, the encounter rate thing was something that was added with for the sequel. So the fact that it's different here does maybe perhaps suggest that they're using the original version as a base and not for the sequel. If it's a different selection of
weird.
Oh,
Okay.
I hope it does not have the original loop.
And also, like, it makes me wonder too, like, if they're gonna integrate the camera in any way, like, because
Yeah.
there are some parts in like the very last part of that game where, like, you know, the camera did come into play from the 3DS.
Yeah, I really hope I'm wrong and I'm just overthinking things because apparently there's a lot of like new side quest stuff and like even changes to like graphics and whatnot that really makes it seem like that, man, we didn't realize just how good we had it with the Western release. If this is based off the original Japanese version, that's like what are they doing? Again,
Yeah.
speculation, we don't know, but it's
But wait. The game is called Flying Fairy originally. And when they
yes.
release it in the West, they never call it Flying Fairy. They change the subtitle into where the fairy flies or something.
Oh,
So-
that's actually a good point because the
Oh,
official
yeah.
subtitle for the enhanced version in Japan was Bravely Default for the sequel. But now they're calling it
Mm.
Bravely Default Flying Fairy, which god damn it.
Yeah, Chow, you're
I was ruining it
oh,
again.
God damn it, Chow, you keep ruining this game.
you don't trust liars like the fairies, okay?
So, sorry. Anyway, yeah, Adam, you steer the conversation next on where you want to bring it to.
Okay, we'll stay on the third party track, I guess. There are a couple different third party games there. There's two of them I'll talk about for sure. I played Yakuza 0 Director's Cut a little bit. Now the problem is it was so loud there I couldn't even tell if I was playing with the new English dub or not.
You couldn't even tell which dub?
No, like they didn't have like headsets for these, and like it was just so loud, like I couldn't even tell. But I was something I didn't expect is that like, oh, we have an English dub now. No one expected this. I don't think no one even was asking for this necessarily, but it's there. There's also a Chinese dub, and also like new cutscenes, I guess. Now I didn't get to
Yeah.
see that, so I have not played Yakuza, so this is new to me. But I was doing an early the person told me I was like basically at like the first part of the game where you kind of first get to wander around and do some side events, and it was very quick, like 10-15 minutes. But obviously this is a PS3 game at heart, and so of course it runs really well on Switch 2. Like absolutely no issues with how it runs and how it looks. But yeah, that was there. I actually, Mikhail forced me to ask them, does it have bubble? And yes, it has bubble.
Look, I'm curious about this game. It's Yakuza 0 that was over there, right?
Yes, Yakuza. That's the only one that's been announced.
And it has a Chinese dub, right?
Apparently, that's what
We
the
can
press release
finally
says.
hear Mr. Oda speaks fluent Mandarin. We played it in Japanese back in the day. He spoke in the worst Mandarin I ever heard in my life. It's almost gibberish.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's actually yeah, good catch. You're right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, so the reason I asked Adam to check that is because when they did Yakuza Kiwami on Switch and released it in October last year, that's the only version of the game in the West which has like the licensed music intact. In fact, they even added this DLC opening variant which was available for like first print run, something like that in Asia. And yeah, so Yakuza 0 removed the licensed music when they released it in the West because I think at that time they weren't sure whether it was going to do well or not, so they didn't want to pay for it. Now, whenever they release the new games, we get all the licensed music. So that would automatically make it worth playing again for me because I love that opening song. And the video is actually pretty funny. It has Nagoshi in a nightclub with like champagne and stuff with the band. It's quite funny. So
All
I'll just
right.
post that in the staff chat. But yeah,
Yeah.
I wanted him to check that specifically. And yeah, it's great to have that confirmed. Now, the only thing we need to know is how much it's going to cost, whether they're doing a physical release. And there's one thing I want to bring up with Yakuza 0 because if you've been following the game on like Steam and other platforms, they haven't been discounting the game on Steam as much as they used to. Like we used to see it drop to like $5 often, but I don't think I've seen it drop below $12 from 20. So I don't know if this tells me they might do a paid upgrade like they did for Dark Souls Remastered,
Yeah,
because
I was
at
gonna
that point
ask.
they stopped
Eh,
discounting Dark Souls Prepare to Die edition randomly, and then they just did like, oh, everyone who has that can pay $20 and get Dark Souls Remastered. So I feel like maybe if they port this, I think it says launching first, so they probably will do
okay.
something like that. But I feel like PC might get a discounted upgrade, but because it's a PS4 and Xbox One game, they might just charge console like a full price thing and just release it on PS5 and Series X directly. Maybe. Again, this is all speculation because it's just been announced for Switch 2. But yeah, if I look at how the game has been on platforms, and as someone who's played the game everywhere, I've been following it, so I feel like that's how it might happen.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if it was only exclusive to Switch 2, but you answered that. Like, it looks like it's coming first there, so that means it'll definitely be coming to other platforms eventually.
It's one of those things where they kind of the wording is very safe that makes it imply that it's coming elsewhere eventually. So
Um, and as you briefly mentioned, this new director's cut will have some like new cutscenes. Like they said, like over 25 minutes, like new cutscenes. I don't know exactly like where they're gonna be adding them or how they're interspersed in it. And then there's some sort of like new online multiplayer like raid battle mode or whatever, which looks like, hey, you pick a character and you just go like mash. You fight with like other people online. It looks sort of mindless and whatever from like the very first like gameplay clips of it, but I'm not exactly sure like how much that'll add to the game substantially or if it'll be meaningful or whatever. But if you've never played Yakuza 0, it's one hell of a game. Always an easy recommendation. That's still just the fantastic game. Hopefully the English dub is awesome. Like like there's been really solid dub work recently in the Yakuza games. Personally, I'm not a fan of Yong Ya being, the voice of Kiryu, but I know other people are fine with it, and that's totally fine. Um, but hopefully they continue doing it like the great like English dubs that they've been doing for the past Yakuza slash like a Dragon entries. Good on them for finally doing that.
Mhm.
All that. So it's cool. Like definitely unexpected. It was interesting surprise for sure when they showed that. Anyway, Adam, what's the other third party game you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, so they announced a handful of games coming to the system, third-party RPGs. So obviously we're RPG sites, so that was what we focus on. So stuff like Elden Ring, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Wild Hearts, things like that. None of those were playable. However, they did have Cyberpunk there, Cyberpunk 2077. I think it's called Cyberpunk 2077 Ultimate Edition, which is for Nintendo Switch 2. It includes the Phantom Liberty expansion, and as we talked about earlier, I believe it is fully on the cart, the whole game, no downloads.
Very
So
impressive.
that's
Crazy.
cool. Now, perhaps I'm just approaching this the wrong way, but this demo was probably one of the less impressive demos of the event in a way, because I see all these other games running at like at least 1080p, 60 frames per second, and then you play this demo and it's like not quite 60 frames per second. Seems like dynamic resolution, sometimes under 1080p, but obviously it's a much more dense game, like what's happening on screen compared to Kirby or whatever, right?
Yeah, way bigger open scope, like sort of game.
But like when you go to play it, like I was playing the demo. I've never played Cyberpunk fully. I guess it was an early level in the Phantom Liberty expansion that we were playing. Like, you could tell that like the things like the resolution and the frame rate were variable. I was there. They told me that this was in performance mode, which is targeting like 40 to 50 frames per second variable frame rate. Whereas there's also like a quality mode, which is going to be, I think, 1080p 30 frame per second. So I was playing in performance mode. And, things like the variable frame rate, the dynamic resolution scaling, and even things like talking to characters, seeing a bunch of dithering in the hair, aliasing and dithering in the hair. It was just kind of like, okay, yeah, this is definitely a console version of this game. And I'm a PC player, so, it's like, maybe I'm not the best person to like judge this, and I honestly don't know what this game looks like on PlayStation 5, for instance, right? But it was definitely like, okay, this is a console version of this game. It stayed above 30 frames per second, so no like major staggering there. But definitely a game where it's like impressive with drawbacks, and it's not going to be a replacement to the PC version, of course, but I just felt it was
impressive that they
okay
got
to
it running
me.
on that system.
Yeah.
I guess it's more like a statement like, hey, Switch 2 can run these games. Like, it might not be at full 60 FPS, but it is capable of running it in a way that like Switch 2 cannot.
I mean,
I
it's
think
very
the
analogous
important,
to
Switch
Witcher
one
3
cannot.
on Switch. Yeah.
yeah, so I think the important thing with Cyberpunk is the current console versions have cross save with the PC version through GOG. So there's a good chance this one will probably have cross save as well, which is going to be nice as a companion version for another platform which someone might use as their main for the game. Like, you can do the story on like your PC or your PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X, and if you want to just like mess around with side stuff, you can do that over here as well. That's how I know people who did that for Witcher 3. Like they focused for the main story, they were playing it on their PC, and then they like just synced it to the Switch and they were playing it over there to just like mess around with the side stuff. So
Yeah, makes sense.
maybe. But the other thing we need to keep in mind is I believe it's been confirmed this build was like either 7 weeks old or was it done in 7 weeks? I think, James, what was it?
I think they told me that the build was uh I don't know if they said 7 weeks, but that it was an old build and that that it was obviously not fully optimized yet. So like this is a launch game. It's coming out on June 5th for Switch 2,
Yes.
but this isn't a final build. So
Okay.
I actually forgot that it was a launch game. I thought they just announced it for later.
nope.
No, it's a lot. I've actually played
Mm.
Cyberpunk on Steam Deck, and I played very little of it on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One X because it was like a trash fire when it launched. But I have played it
Yep.
on PS5 and Series X, and I think the performance mode on those is either 1440, 60, and it actually hits 60 quite well. But there is a big downgrade from the quality mode over there. So I'm not surprised that if you were playing it in performance mode, it was not. And you were playing it docked, right? Or was it
It was
handheld?
docked.
I
Yeah,
don't.
apparently handheld is kind of rough from what I heard
Yeah,
other
I think
people play.
Alex.
Yeah.
Yeah, Alex said he said docked it was fine or decent, but handheld is not something. I think he said he was shocked they like were showing it off in handheld at all based
Yeah.
on how it looked. So yeah, but it's still good that they're shipping complete on cart. It- like uh like he said that it's a statement that yes, Switch 2 can run like a new big game, even though it is a few years old now. But Phantom Liberty is like a current gen only thing. It's not on PS4 or Xbox One. So
It's
this
not
is
like
not.
something like it's not. It's one of those things like at least you can you can get this running and have it the resources like in a reasonable time frame, provided that you have the resources, of course. But it's not like technical wizardry in the same way like how getting Doom on the Switch to run, for example. It's like, oh my god, these guys are like, you have to really think outside the box to get this running on the Switch One. Because
I forgot Doom was on Switch.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I played it all the way there.
Yeah, and it ran pretty well there too. It's like, wow, how the fuck did you guys do this?
I think
Uh,
When Doom released, like it was a launch year game for the Switch One with Skyrim. Skyrim was like super impressive to me because that was the only version of the game that did not get like saves corrupted or crashed for me, if you believe it. Like I dropped the Xbox 360 version. The PC version was like a mess for me, but this somehow worked perfectly. But yeah,
wow.
Doom was I think Doom 2016 was, yeah, wow, they got this running on Switch. But when Doom Eternal came, I was like, I'm good. So yeah.
Yeah, that was a shame. So cool. That at least you were able to see that firsthand, Adam, and yeah, I got to see them there. Um, do we want to go on to like more third-party announcements from the direct?
Well, in terms of demos, I
Okay.
know it's kind of a weird thing to say. And while Metroid Prime 4 was probably like my favorite demo, the demos for the Zelda titles, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, were like really impressive. Like
Yeah,
so seeing those running at like a good smooth frame rate, it makes me want to like play
I want
those
to replay
games all
them.
over again.
Yeah, me
I'm
too.
sure they've uploaded like Treehouse streams and whatnot by now, but like, and it's not just like the improved resolution, although that's of course a bonus. Just like the menus are so snappy, like pulling up your different weapons and sliding through your swords and your bows and
Yeah,
things like that. And
I'm with you.
even just things like the like text boxes or text bubbles popping up are just like a lot snappier, a lot smoother. I even tested it warping around the Hyrule with the different warp points. Like load times are like cut in half at least. It's just like so much snappier.
Yeah, Nintendo put side by side comparisons of like the Switch One footage to the Switch Two footage of those games, and it's like, man, it's incredible how much more smooth they are, and how it just like for me, it just looks so like it kind of it really makes me want to dive back and replay them from start to finish
Yeah,
over again.
that's what people were saying that, and kind of obviously the joke is like these are not short games. If you want to replay both of these, that's like 50 hours each, probably at
Yes.
minimum.
Even then, like I'm like way more interested in the new Pokemon Legends now because they showed off footage that had like really
Yeah.
smooth
It
frame
looks
rate. I'm
good.
like, oh yeah. I was like, man, I wanna try this game out now in that Switch 2 version.
Now,
Fuck.
it's one interesting thing about the Switch 2 versions, I don't know if it's both games, but of the Zelda games, is like they added stuff that goes with like a mobile app
It's weird.
for the
I was
game.
going to ask if you saw any of that or if they showed
No,
off
they
any of
didn't have
that.
any of that like playable. They had a little like kiosk showing some of the stuff, but it wasn't like actually like in real time. Um, but like there's stuff like achievements in the game, like for finding certain
The mobile
things or
app?
doing
Yeah.
certain things like from the mobile app. Um, but then there's also things that are like literally like Princess Zelda like leaving like audio logs basically, and they're voiced too. Um, where like that's actually like possibly like story relevant in terms of like
Yeah, that's
obviously
like new stuff.
like both of these games you're kind of almost trailing along the events that happened, right? But you can kind of like hear like here's what Zelda's thoughts were when she was here,
It's
however
so
long ago that was.
goofy.
So there's like it's possible that there's like story insight and things that weren't in the original versions of these games.
So when they showed out the mobile app tie-in to Breath of the Wild: Tears of the Kingdom, like I'm just thinking like throughout this whole thing, like Nintendo has like weirdly embraced that whole weird PS3 360 era where like they had to like spend like over 5 minutes explaining what voice chat was to people and how
Oh
you can use
yeah,
a camera to with this voice chat app. And now they have the second screen experience that like so many games that like within a certain time period we're starting to do it. Like, hey, you can boot up like the Far Cry app on your tablet and gain access to like your inventory and go mark check marks and like access an in-game map. through the second screen experience. I'm like, this is like the most like oddly enough the
What
most
a weird
Nintendo thing
period of
ever.
time.
Where
Yeah.
they're resurrecting this thing that's like 5 to 6 years out of date and like video games have moved on from, and like when they do like the in-game map for the Zelda games, and then there's like a GPS voice along with it
Yes.
too, like go north. It's like what the fuck.
Yeah,
It's so
like literally
you're
like
you
Google
put it on Google
Maps.
Maps. Yeah.
On your Hyrule Maps on your
Yeah.
phone.
God,
I think
it's
the only
so
interesting thing
stupid.
sorry, go ahead.
I'm just saying it's so stupid, yet it's so fascinating too. And what I do like out of this too is like the shareable like Tears of the Kingdom creations that you can like share with other people on the fly. Like, that's pretty cool. Like I'll be like that's I don't. It's not really intuitive. Like you could probably just do this through in-game online like online interface, but they decided to like do this through the second screen app, and it's like okay, I guess. Or um.
But yeah, but it was really impressive looking those. It like
Mm.
kind of like Metroid Prime. It almost looks illegal. Like, wait, Zelda can look like this? It can run like this? It's allowed to?
Yeah.
Now, yeah, like I said, generally speaking, at the event, people were pretty impressed with the games, with the system itself. I mean, hands-on with the Switch. It's a little bit bigger. It's a little bit heavier. Obviously, bigger screen, bigger Joy-Cons. I'm kind of a controller agnostic person. I can usually get used to pretty much any controller. I don't like have a favorite, whatever. But like, I had absolutely no issues like playing it in handheld mode. They had the new Pro controller there, which does have new buttons on the back. The Pro controller I think felt a little bit heavier to me. Like I didn't have a comparison point, but I do know like the Switch One Pro controller is like a lightweight. It's like a feather. So the new Pro controller felt a little bit heavier to me, which is actually good for me. I want a little bit more heft to that. But
I wonder if that means that if the battery life is even better than the original Pro controller, because I remember like the Wii U Pro controller had better battery life, though really nobody complained about the Switch Pro controller's battery.
Yeah, I mean, I use the Switch Pro controller a lot for like Xenoblade X recently, and like it could last like 35 hours on full charge to recharge it.
But no mention of Hall effect stuff.
No, I saw that Wirecutter mentioned Hall effect, but then they edited it to say like this is speculation. They were asked about stick. Oh, so I didn't. Well, let me talk about one last demo. I think.
Yeah.
So what other games did they have? One second here. The last game to talk about the demo is Donkey Kong Bonanza.
Yeah, that looked awesome.
This game is weird but cool and weird and fun. So this game is like, it feels like we were expecting. I even said on the last week's podcast, like, oh, they'll probably announce 3D Mario. That seems like a safe bet. Nope, wrong. It's 3D Donkey Kong.
Even better, finally.
So I think my favorite takeaway from this Donkey Kong demo is actually what Dan Rickards' post about it was on Blue Sky. He basically says, in Donkey Kong Bonanza, the 4 face buttons basically are this. One face button is fuck shit up in front of you. The other face button is fuck shit up beneath you. Then another one is fuck shit up above you. And the last one is jump. That's the game.
Nice. I love it. I'm sold.
You basically just punch everything, punch around. Everything is destructible. Many people made the Red Faction gorilla joke because it's a gorilla Red Faction. Yeah, if you're too young to know what Red Faction gorilla was, it was basically a game that's selling point was destructible environments where everything is destructible. Similar stuff here. It's like so I played a level of it. It is like an open world-ish sandbox. By open world, I mean like open level Mario type design sandbox with stuff to collect out in the world. Like there's fossils, there's coins, there's some other stuff to pick up that are like collectibles. It's a 3D platformer type game. Just now you can basically destroy the level as you go through it, and it's persistent. Like you can.
That's so cool.
You see you see a little like mountainous hilltop. You can just punch your way through it, and sometimes there's like chests hiding in the mountain that you have to like punch your way to. There are a few nice components that are included in the game to kind of like work around this. For example, there is a map. Like you press a button to see like a bird's eye view of the map, but you can like rotate it a little bit and zoom in, zoom out to kind of get a better glimpse of your bearings. And then also there's a selection to basically like reconstruct the level. So
interesting.
that's a good addition to like, oh, I accidentally punched my way through this building and now I made it harder for myself to get up there or whatever. You can reset the level to try again or whatever, and it's pretty quick.
That's smart. Yeah.
It is a little bit like, if you have OCD, it is a little bit messy because there's just like glittery collectible stuff absolutely everywhere. And it's kind of like a mess. You're like, oh, I can interact with absolutely everything and pick up tons of different things, and there's just a lot going on. But it is just kind of a chaotic mayhem type platformer, which I guess is probably appropriate for Donkey Kong.
Yeah, I mean, it's been so long since for like a really brand new Donkey Kong game that wasn't in that Donkey Kong Country style, like side scroller levels.
This is the spiritual successor to Donkey Kong 64. I mean, sort of.
Yeah, because obviously we've been in like the Rare era of Donkey Kong, even though the most recent games were Retro Studios, but they were just super faithful to the Rare era of Donkey Kong with the same design and Dixie and Diddy and all that.
Diddy,
But I did see, I forget if it was Nintendo directly or some other third party or some other website that had access. Like Cranky Kong does make an appearance, so there is some hope for like
Diddy,
the Kremlins or Diddy or whoever. People are like, I want Kiddy Kong from Country 3 or something. Like, I've never played that one, but I guess Donkey Kong's new design looks kind of like it. Things like that. And I think his new design is super expressive and real fun evolution.
It's cool that they surprised everyone like this. That is a fun surprise, and they had like gameplay ready to go to show off people, and that debut trailer, like, hey, that was definitely one of the strongest trailers in that direct, and a really smart one to end off on for that direct.
Really, the only thing that seemed a little bit like a miss is that having both Mario Kart and Air Riders, it's like two racing games, but they did also have Kirby's like
they're completely different. They're completely different types of racing games, and like personally, I'm excited for Mario Kart, but like Kirby Air Ride's like probably my favorite GameCube game, especially like just City Trial with Friends is a complete mood. So I'm really hopeful that there's like whatever is obviously going to replace it, because you don't make a new Kirby Air Ride and like not have a City Trial mode or something like it. And obviously in this day and age, it's going to be online multiplayer. So that's going to be something interesting.
That's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, I wish they showed off some gameplay, but I know Sakurai loves the CG trailers as well.
Yeah, it's probably gonna be like shown off like during like their inevitable summer thing, because it's coming out this year. They're gonna show footage like probably.
It's really cool that they did that though. Like a very really fun surprise. Like damn, that's that. I don't know. Like a lot of people were hopeful for a new Kirby Air Ride, but I didn't know they had enough power to manifest it to reality. Like, hey, it's cool that Sakurai continues to just. Definitely a developer that is forever passionate of his creation. He sticks with Kirby all the way through thick and thin.
I do hope that this new Air Ride doesn't do the usual like Sakurai thing where he just ignores everything that's been in the Kirby series since he stopped working on it.
I hope not. Yeah. But that's cool that there's a new Kirby Air Ride game,
and based on our predictions last week, or predictions or hopes, whatever you want to call it. Monolith Soft did not make an appearance. Intelligent Systems did not make an appearance.
Nope, there was a very small Intelligent Systems appearance. Very, very small.
What was that?
The excellent Path of Radiance is on the GameCube. Nintendo Switch Online.
I guess we didn't talk about that. Yeah, GameCube games coming to online plus experience.
I have a few more things I want to talk about.
James first.
The GameCube stuff. Both of the GameCube Pokemon games are on NSO. Are those going to connect to Pokemon Home?
Yeah, that's I've heard like a lot of speculation about that, and a lot of hopeful people hoping that like please, hopefully this has some more functionality behind it. So yeah, but go on. Like we totally didn't talk about like GameCube.
Well, I'll talk about GameCube in a second. They had Street Fighter 6 there, And I
Yeah.
didn't play it, but I was watching it, and I know Alex played it at his event, and it seems like everyone's pretty happy with how Street Fighter works, like on Switch 2. Like
How
no
was
real
the
issues with
D-pad
it.
on the Pro controller?
It seemed okay to me, but I didn't really test it a lot. So
I was surprised that amiibos for it as well. A whole bunch of Street Fighter 6 amiibos.
I mean, Capcom has like gone pretty hard on amiibos in the past, like even with like Monster Hunter Stories and stuff like that.
That's true.
so-
Yeah, I think just
What were
like
the
I just
amiibos? There was 2 games. It was Street Fighter and one other. I'm trying to remember what the other was.
It was
Inizagami.
Zelda. No,
Oh,
for the
for
amiibo.
Capcom
Oh yeah,
system.
Zelda.
it was Zelda. You're right. It's the 4 characters from Tears of the
Yeah.
Kingdom,
Right, yeah.
older
And then
Riju
those
and
are those are going to
Yunobu.
be $20, and the Street Fighter ones are $30 apparently.
oh wow.
Jesus.
What did they say? Any of that? What's the functionality of the amiibos?
I assume there's
They
going to be
just said there'll
something
be something
for.
which something you can do with it, and it says it'll, it's just a boilerplate. It will connect to the game and let you do something or some vague,
Okay.
I don't know what.
I assume the Zelda
And they're
ones will
doing
be
amiibo cards though.
Age of Imprisonment. Will have something.
Yeah.
That wasn't
But,
demo. I wanted to play that, but that wasn't there.
And they also revealed that like, hey, the Switch 2 version of Street Fighter 6, it's like the base game has full crossplay support, so you can play with people at other
Oh
platforms.
yeah, that's very good because Guilty Gear Strive, which just released on Switch like a few months ago, it does not have any crossplay with anything. And I think Samurai Showdown, which was updated on all platforms with rollback, that does not have rollback on Switch. So like Switch fighting games it's usually the worst place to play fighting games. So yeah, for having Street Fighter 6 with crossplay is a very big deal. And I
Yeah.
was worried about this because I said, oh, we're going to have a lot more people playing on Wi-Fi now, but I forgot that Street Fighter lets you view the connection type before you accept a match. So
Yeah,
I was
Also-
it has a a lot of good modern fighting game
Yeah.
features on that end. Yeah.
Also, the Switch 2's dock actually has an Ethernet built in. So.
Yes. Yep.
Hmm.
Good call out. Very important for fighting games. But even then, it's still somewhat playable with Wi-Fi connections because like Street Fighter 6's rollback implementation, like very good, very good.
So there's 2 other games I can think of before the GameCube thing that was playable. Split Fiction was there. Again, I didn't
Cool.
play this. I watched it, but
Mhm.
it seems like people are pretty content and happy with Split Fiction. Like obviously that game, Josh played it. Seems to have reviewed quite well. Seems like it's selling pretty well, like based on the metrics that we do have. So that's going to be playable. I think that's a launch title for Switch too.
I believe so. Yeah, I believe that's
So like
launch
that's
title.
available. So that's what
You
EA has that, and then of course there's sports stuff coming eventually.
can play it locally on Switch too, right?
Yeah, they had the co-op people playing
Okay.
there. Like you were playing
Cool.
people playing in co-op there.
Nice.
So that's there. Mario Party Jamboree. So I actually played this. I played this over the holiday break with my brothers. Obviously, it's Mario Party. They added like what is basically Connect mode to it.
I was gonna say Connect controls.
iToy mode.
Yeah, so it feels a little gimmicky, and it does feel like something like this is basically Mario Party Connect. Like for instance, so I played with 3 other people, like in a 4-player round of like some of the new modes and stuff. Like for example, there is a mode where it's like hit the block ahead above your head as much as you can. So you literally, you're on camera, you literally take the Joy-Con and swing your arm above you to try to hit the imaginary block above your head. And then stuff like there's like a Simon Says sort of thing where it's like squat, don't squat, Mario squat. Only it's like Mario Says instead of Simon Says. So you're literally like squatting up and down, like you're standing up while you're playing this. It very Connect reminiscent. There was one where there was one of the mini games where you had to like just make a lot of noise. So it was actually kind of funny on the floor. So it's pretty loud in this little demo area with all these different games going on and whatnot. But periodically you just hear people going ah because they're just yelling at Mario Party.
That's really funny.
So some people really got into it, just literally screaming on top of their lungs playing Mario Party.
I
It's
love
one of those
that.
things where it's like, yeah, it does feel a little bit gimmicky, maybe fun, like if you can get enough people
If
to
you
play
get
it
people
together.
to buy in
Yeah.
and just let go, you could
Yeah,
have
just a
good
party
time.
setting stuff,
Right.
completely normal stuff.
But obviously it has the rest of the normal Mario Party stuff there too. But that was kind of the demo that we saw of the camera and the microphone, I guess. So
Yeah, it's weird how they demoed it like in the rec because like for some of the mini games like when you have a camera and stuff like when you're like the steak cutting mini game for example, like you can see people's faces as they're like doing the steak cut the co-op steak cutting.
yeah,
But it's like that reminds me also of like Burnout Paradise because that was that era of like when you had like webcam implementation on your consoles, like you'd see people's faces at like certain points during the game, depending on how the developer implemented it. Like in Burnout Paradise, when you crashed into someone, it would take a snapshot of that person as they're getting crashed into. Uh, it's like weird implementation of like the ways that you did it. Of course, the most infamous one was like Uno on Xbox Live.
yes.
Wild times because you saw a lot of things there. It's like, man, fucked up. It's fucked up.
So they did have some of the Nintendo Switch Online GameCube stuff there. They had 4 games.
Mhm.
They had Wind Waker, they had F-Zero GX, they had Mario Strikers Charged, and they had Soul Calibur 2. And I know they showed a lot more in the collage about other games coming to it, like Path of Radiance, which for us is relevant. But
Mhm.
so I played a little bit of Wind Waker. It is kind of funny how people were like hoping for like Wind Waker on Switch 2, and like, well, here's Wind Waker on Switch 2, maybe not in the way that you envisioned it. Uh, it obviously is the GameCube version of Wind Waker.
Wii U
So
version.
it
Was it
looks
Wii U,
not the
remake?
HD Wii U version. It's the
Yeah,
GameCube
yeah.
version, which of course it is. It's the GameCube Online. Um, it looks really nice. Obviously, being like upscaled to HD from its original resolution. Wind Waker does not support widescreen. It's just some GameCube games did, and some GameCube games did not. Wind Waker did not. So this game, when you play it, has these little like sidebars on the side. There's some like pattern there. It's not purely black, but when you're playing it on a modern monitor or screen, it's played in 4:3
It's pillar
aspect
box.
ratio
Yeah.
with pillar boxes on the side with a little bit of like a bubble pattern or something. I don't remember. But some of the games, I think F-Zero did support widescreen on GameCube, so you can
Oh
play it on
yeah.
widescreen here. I might be wrong on that. Some games did, some games didn't. It just kind of was back then for you young guys. It was kind of case by case.
So wait a second. So you can like 100% play F-Zero in widescreen through this? Because I know some people were a bit concerned because the footage they showed was 4:3, even though that game supported widescreen.
I think they showed it. Don't take me on it. They basically said that on the floor that if it supported widescreen, you can play it in widescreen, and I think
Okay,
F-Zero
yeah.
did.
Okay,
So-
yeah. Then if the official statement is games that supported widescreen at the time will support it now, that's really all people wanted to know. Probably.
Yeah, but when I played Wind Waker myself, which didn't.
I know
But it's
I know Soul Calibur did the
Oh,
option.
okay.
So
Yeah.
playing through Wind Waker was kind of like nostalgic in a way. Obviously, I wasn't that young when Wind Waker came out. I was in middle school, I think, or maybe early high school. But anyways, it runs really well. It has the original look. It's upscaled to HD resolutions.
Well,
It's
some
pretty.
people would argue that HD resolution without the extra
Yeah.
bloom might actually look better.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But people were wondering, like, it's one of those things that I wouldn't really have thought of or cared about. But people are wondering, like, how does the tingle tuner work? Like, I don't know. We didn't know. No one got that far.
Good question.
Does the GameCube functionality on Switch 2 does it have like a rewind feature, like how some of the Nintendo Switch Online?
Yeah. So it has
stuff?
a CRT filter that you can turn on and off.
Okay.
Like, I don't know. Chow is going to be more of a CRT filter guy than me, so I couldn't tell you, like, is it a good CRT filter or a bad one? I turned it on, turned it off. I'm like, yeah, it looks like a filter to me. So
I would hope that would just be based off of like the CRT Royale shader, like that a lot of emulators use, because that is like open source, I believe, and it should have like the headroom to use it. And that's like, especially if you're outputting to 4K, like generally, like CRT shaders, if you're outputting to 4K, looks good.
yeah, I mean, I turned it on and it looked good to me. But I know there's different flavors of CRT filters, and like some are better than others. And like, I don't know, I just turned it on and turned it off, and like, yep, that looks like a filter to me. There are save states. There is no rewind, but I guess that's also true for N64 games. There is no rewind on the system. That's what they told me. I don't know for sure. I don't really mess with NSO, but so save states, CRT filter. You can also play for some games. You can also choose whether or not you're playing the NTSC version or the PAL version. You can choose either or of the GameCube game, which, obviously I'm from North America, I'm from the US, I'm familiar with NTSC versions, but you can choose PAL if you want in some cases. So, or
I'm
European
not exactly
version.
sure like which GameCube games would have that would be most affected by that. I'm not too
Yeah, I'm not sure
familiar with
either,
the
but
NTSC
it was
option.
definitely an option in the menu. So that's there.
I
But yeah,
have
I
a
played through a
question
little
for
bit of the
you.
early part of Wind Waker. It was very nostalgic.
When you were playing this, was it on a Switch 2 controller or the GameCube
Oh, it
controller
was
that they
the
showed?
new GameCube controller.
New
Like
GameCube controller.
it was the GameCube peripheral thing that they announced.
Uh-huh.
That
That,
controller.
and I guess it's hard to judge on the game floor because I know like people who like played like the N64, like the periphery one that they used, like it felt like the build quality was kind of shoddy. I guess it's hard to discern from your time at the show floor, like
It
whether
felt a
that
little
felt.
bit cheap, maybe, but I was fine with
Mhm.
it. It looks exactly like a GameCube controller. However, it does have like the chat button on it. So
Yeah,
like, oh yeah, there's a new chat button here.
like probably like the Super Smash Brothers Melee crowd is probably at least a little
Oh yeah.
interested on whether what the build quality is like on these new batch of GameCube controllers. I don't know. Okay.
Does it take double
Is Fire
A's?
Emblem is Fire Emblem going to be at launch? Or I think it's just 3 games at launch.
Well, the 4 games that were there, like I said, were Wind Waker, F-Zero, Soul Calibur, and Mario Strikers Charged. So like, are those the launch games? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
But yeah,
But
the Fire Emblem wasn't playable, Pokemon wasn't playable, so no idea.
and this GameCube functionality, it's going to be part of that Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack tier
Yes.
subscription. Okay. So there's not like there's not a separate tier or anything, right? It's just part of that
No.
expansion. Okay,
Yeah, it's in the expansion tier, like the upper tier
got it.
of the
Got it.
subscription. Now, after all of the demos, we then had like a large roundtable of the 3. I don't have their names in front of me, but the 3 basically console designers that were on the direct were there answering a few questions about the system. And unfortunately, a lot of the answers were kind of like sort of vague. Like, for example, they were asked about like the original Switch had this issue with stick drift. Have you addressed this with the new Switch? Now, the person who asked the question did not specifically say, like, does this have Hall effect sensors? But the response to that question was basically, we built this from the ground up. So it's like, okay, I guess that's good, but that doesn't really answer the question. So
I think a lot of the answers on that is like when people do like full hardware breakdowns of both the console and the controllers, and then we'll get
Well,
most of
I
that
kind
answer.
of get that. They can't say absolutely this will not have stick drift across the millions of consoles we will sell, even if they've made efforts to really improve it. I guess they could have given a better answer than they did, though. Let's just talk
now,
about if they focus on that at all. Go ahead.
I hope this comes across the right way. I saw some people reporting that like people weren't asked to talk about politics and like how dare they? Politics is everything, blah blah blah. But the thing is, but how they basically put it was like these are the hardware designers. They have no input on like, how are they going to price these? Like no, we couldn't
Yeah,
really ask questions about prices. Not because they didn't want to answer them, but it's like these guys aren't the people to ask. Like these are the hardware designers. They don't have
right.
input into that. So you can't ask them like, why is the game $80 or whatever? Like, will tariffs affect how you sell this thing? Like these guys don't know. These guys these aren't those people. You're not asking the right guy. So
Yeah,
that's what
it's
they
like
meant.
think about like a toy, for example. You're not asking the architect of the toy how much this toy is going to cost. Those are like the marketing people, the ones that actually do, or like the ones who
The biz
are
dev guys,
the
like the
business
people.
economic side. Yeah, those are the ones deciding the prices, not the ones who built it. They're they have specific functions and the way that thing is you know
Yeah,
made.
so that's what they meant. And when they did say no politics, I'm guessing they meant like don't ask about tariffs because this was literally like a couple hours I think after the tariff announcement. So they kind of in that moment they're like don't ask about
Right.
these. This is
It
brand new
makes sense.
information.
Totally
These
sense.
guys don't know. So
Right.
and obviously these guys are also Japanese like
Yeah.
they're not going to be the ones setting the price in America, right?
Yeah.
So that's what they meant. Like just So I hope that came across the right way. These are the tech guys. But yeah,
Right.
the roundtable was like moderately interesting, and they talked about, for example, like somebody was concerned about the magnets on the Joy Cons, and I actually got to mess with this a little bit. Like I think the magnet connection is pretty nice. I do think it does feel a bit sturdier than the little rails on the Switch One. So they talked about some of the magnet connections and how that works, and no one asked them about the HDR on the screen. I'm sorry, James, if it's mini LED
It's
or
all right.
whatever. But yeah, it was moderately interesting, although they did sidestep a few things to avoid giving specific answers. And they, of course, these same three guys, they have a more formal, like Nintendo published Q&As on their website too. So
Yeah, I mean, there we go. They finally, after what, 5 years of rumors of this thing.
they said they started development like it was one of those things where they were asked when they started development on Switch 2, and they kind of said like, well, when it comes to hardware, it's sort of like we're always kind of developing new hardware. Like it's not like we start at a certain time, we end at a certain time. We're always, experimenting, trying things, thinking about things or whatnot. But they said more or less started in 2019 if you want to put a hard year on it. So only a few years after the Switch release, they were already thinking about Switch 2. So
Yeah, makes sense.
I think I'm glad you brought up HDR because it was pretty interesting and funny that when they showed the screen in the direct, I thought they'd just say, oh, it's a bigger screen and everything looks nicer, but they actually like focused on it. Oh, it's 1080p and it has 120 fps support and it's HDR. Like these aren't things you'd
and
expect
VRR,
Nintendo to talk
yeah,
about. And yeah, and VRR on the website was super surprising. And then there's that Nvidia posted this blog thing where they said it's AI powered DLSS. But what I think a lot of people missed in that is it confirmed that the handheld mode has G-Sync,
yeah,
which
it does.
is like shocking. Yeah, that's not something I expected either. So that's why
I
I think by
mean,
the
that
end
makes
of it,
sense.
yeah,
That makes sense in the sense that you have laptops have G-Sync, but they don't use the G-Sync module. It's just like NVIDIA's
yeah,
branding for like their like implementation of adaptive sync. So any like the handheld having VRR for the display means that NVIDIA is going to say, yeah, it supports G-Sync because it supports their implementation of VRR on the screen. So it's
oh, it's like that. Okay, I
yeah.
understand. But it's still just something you don't really expect. So that's why I think by the end of it, when people ask me what did you think of the Switch 2, and I'm like, I don't really have a problem with the price point of the hardware. It seems good. It's just that the games are I have a problem with the game pricing and the physical releases or the lack of information about them. But the console seems super good and all impressions, like hands-on impressions, like Adam, even Alex's impressions, everyone's just very happy with how things are. But you mentioned the Pro controller has two extra buttons. It's a little weird that they didn't put those on the Joy-Cons at all, and you have
Yeah.
to buy that separate grip for them. Like not even the grip which comes with the console, it's the separate $35 grip. They're doing that again. That's a
Yeah.
little weird.
Ah,
And from what I understand with those extra Pro controller buttons, they're like they're basically assignable to like whatever you want for certain games. You can assign a function there that might be on another button, but you can assign it to the back button too. So it's like they're like games won't require those buttons, but they're just there if you want to use them.
Yeah.
So when you hold a controller, they're going to be like kind of where on the back where maybe your middle fingers sit. So
I mean, it's both Microsoft and Sony have their Pro Elite.
yeah,
I
on
forget what
their
the Sony
Pro
one's called.
versions, it's similar,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So
yeah. Mhm.
and I guess it's just really, I guess, encouraging to see that like, hey, this like, you know, hopefully this builds enough of like an install base over time to like now become like the new standard of like developers like to develop for this console instead of having to like make compromises for the Switch One. Over the years, yeah, obviously the price of this thing and the price of like new releases on it is still gonna be an issue moving forward. But hopefully, like over time, like more of the installed base will get to a point where developers will, kind of ditch the Switch One in favor of Switch Two, just to have like a not compromised experience from the ground floor. Um,
Mhm.
Over time, and like we already mentioned, like older Switch games. will be getting Switch 2 enhancements, and it's nice seeing like those older Switch games run at like really super smooth frame rates, like the Zelda games, and then they also announced Pokemon Scarlet and Violet getting those upgrades along with Zelda Echoes of Wisdom and Link's Awakening getting those free Switch 2 updates. 'Cause I would like to see those games run at like a super smooth frame rate, especially Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I like it's weird to say, but like my interest in those games like get are raised like way more when I see them running at like a pretty smooth 60 FPS. It's like
Yeah.
for Pokemon Legends, like wow, okay, I want to play that game now because it's not a stuttery mess. It's kind of weird.
And then I know no news on this front, but I know we're all excited for the possibility of some sort of upgrade path for the Xenoblade titles that
Yeah,
also are on the
hopefully.
Switch. If we can get them on
Monolith
Switch 2 with 60 FPS like consistently.
Monolith Soft could
Especially
just Monolith Soft could just like hold their own direct and say like in the first 5 minutes like, hey, check out all the Xenoblade games that we released on Switch at like 60 FPS, and then end the direct, and I'll be like perfectly happy. All right, I'm like,
here's a
I guess I'll pay
20-second clip
$40
of
for the fucking
Gormod
upgrades.
at 20 FPS. Now go buy Xenoblade 2.
All right,
Again.
I'm there.
I wrote up some quick impressions on the site. Basically what I said here. And I was trying to think of like other games that are relevant to us that would be nice to have like a Switch 2 version. And one that came to mind was like Fire Emblem Three Houses. Like
Yes.
Yeah.
Fire Emblem Engage, that one actually ran and looked pretty nice. Obviously, I won't say no to any
It's
sort of
one
Switch
the
upgrade.
one of the best looking Switch games still, I think.
Yeah, but then like Fire Emblem Three Houses, it was like
Not as much, yeah.
yeah, that one needs it. Like even more than just a broad like just performance improvement. Like a Switch 2 edition, I think would actually be worthwhile. So
Yeah, and of course everyone's praying for the Hyrule Warriors, but both the original and the Age of Calamity to get switched. Did the original Hyrule Warriors come to Switch? I'm
yes, it
pretty
did.
sure the
Yeah,
crossover.
it was a
one.
Wii U game that came to Switch.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah,
Like
hopefully,
definitive
and then
edition.
they announced the new one as well. And oddly enough, the new one that they announced, Age of Imprisonment, was the one of the games there that like looked like that ran the worst on the direct compared to everything else.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, come on, come on. Yeah.
So I think that kind of covers everything that Adam either got to see or talk about during his time in New York with the Switch 2 event. But even though we're nearing the 2-hour mark, we're still not done. There are a handful of things that we have not talked about yet involving the Switch 2. The biggest one is a surprise appearance from FromSoftware announcing the Duskbloods. For a very brief moment in time, the stream chat, Adam, was like, Bloodborne 2? Oh my
it was
God.
it was like this in person too.
Oh, okay.
And,
Okay.
and people are like, Bloodborne? It's Vampire Souls, or I don't know.
Yeah. So, Duskbloods is a Switch exclusive, and they seem to be pretty
Switch 2
clearly like,
exclusive.
yeah. Sorry, I guess I have to get used to saying
Yeah,
specifying
I know.
Switch 2. Yeah, Switch 2 exclusive from Software, slated for 2026, with the kind of the new hotness PvPvE in the same reign as like as Night Rain. But obviously with the kind of like the gothic horror Bloodborne-ish like flavor to it. So Josh, I think you had a few opinions on this. I know we all have opinions on this one,
Yeah.
but I haven't really dug through like the interview or anything like that. I did watch they're starting to show off like uh I haven't followed up if they showed up on Treehouse or not. But yeah, what are your thoughts on the Duskbloods
Yeah,
PvPvE
this
game
is
from
pretty
Software
interesting.
2?
This is the newest game that's directly directed by Hidetaka Miyazaki. Everyone's been wondering what this
Mhm.
guy's been working on, uh, since he's not really on Night Rain. So the Duskbloods is what he's been working on, and as you said, it's a PvPvE multiplayer game, which is different from Night Rain because that Night Rain is a fully co-op experience. You don't fight other people
Oh,
in
okay.
that. And you play as these characters with supernatural abilities called the Bloodsworn, and they are all trying to. They're like in this almost battle royale esque confrontation where they're trying to like get the first blood. And I think the best way, the best angles I've seen from people who've seen this and how the way you interpret it as it's like think of it as expansion of like the covenants in the Souls games. Where the covenants like are mini factions that have their own different like objectives to kind of get higher ranking in the covenants. Like some are more PvP focused, some are more help other players focused, etc. And in this game, it's very much the same where throughout the course of like up to 8 player match, you'll get different objectives. And Miyazaki in the Ask the Developer interview, it's like there are different roles in the match where you might get an objective that's like, hey, your current objective or role right now is like you have this destined like co-op partner, go help them out, or you might get like an objective like your destined rival. You have to go and to complete this, you have to go in a PvP confrontation and so forth. Another interesting, and I love this comparison that someone pointed out in social media is like FromSoftware is making their own Fate Stay Night game. I'm like, oh my god, because the objective of this game is to obtain this first blood, and it's kind of like the Holy Grail and a Holy Grail war in Fate, where you're controlling this supernatural, superhuman character that has their own unique abilities, and you're going up against like a select few of other ones, and you all have differing objectives to obtaining this first blood. So to speak, like you're obtaining victory points. So it's not like, hey, go kill all the other players in the match to immediately win. You have to obtain these victory points, and these victory points are obtained through different routes. Sometimes it's not just direct confrontation. Sometimes you have to be more sneaky, or you have to engage with more of the PVE elements instead, depending on the match variables in a certain round. And over time, you'll be able to customize your character. They in the interview they call it like customizing their blood history and fate. So you're customizing their abilities, appearance, inner characteristics, and over time you're learning more about that, like the character, each character, playable character in the game. So what's like the lore of that character? Well, you have to play more with that character to find out, and you'll gradually uncover more of that character's story over time, and then through piecing together each character's personal stories and backgrounds, you get an overall sense of like what is the greater story of this game, which is very much in line with like how From Software likes to tell like the stories of their like Souls series. It's very
Mhm.
kind of you connect the dots and pieces together, and they're doing it in this game, and this makes for an interesting game from an RPG angle because like of these roles that you have in a match. Think of it like a tabletop RPG when you're playing around in this game. They compared it to, and Miyazaki has like a pretty well documented history about his fascination with tabletop RPGs and dungeon RPGs like Wizardry. Um, in the early days. So, like at first, I like when this was shown out to be PvPvE, I know a lot of people were like kind of uh not up for that, but I really wonder what like how they're gonna do this, especially since it's directed by Miyazaki. He's very unconventional with the way he does stuff. It's not just like boilerplate stuff. So the way that they're presenting this, and it's very. They also like talked about like it's part of the game lore of like why there's such different settings depicted in that trailer. You're basically entering eras, different sets of eras where humanity is already destined to end. Like you're already at the different points in time where like humanity is already declining, you know? And like, wow, that's really fucking cool that like they're framing it like this of why there's so many different locales and different like aesthetics meshing together in the dust, you know? So I'm pretty fascinated with this game. I definitely want to play it and find out for myself, like how this is coming together. I know, BKL, you have your thoughts on it as well. And you're reading that interview.
Yeah, so I think when both of us were discussing the interview, like on and off in the staff chat, uh, I got more interested in it when you started posting those quotes about how you don't need to, like you said, you don't need to, like the PvP part isn't necessary in every map. Like they said that every map will not every not map, I should say, every round or however they're gonna do it is not gonna have the same objectives. Some will require you to do different things. So I thought it'd be interesting because of how like every time you play it with your friends or whatever, or even if you play it with randoms, it's not gonna be the same experience. Like I feel like, I don't know, based on Night Rain, I've pre-ordered Night Rain already because I'm an idiot and I like steelbooks, but I feel like Night Rain might get old sooner than the Duskbloods, even though we don't know much about the latter yet. But what I found more interesting is that they've been working on this for the original Switch. So it proved that like Nintendo was serious about doing something with FromSoft well before the Switch 2, which is a good sign for that relationship at least. Because if you remember when they showed off Dark Souls Remastered at a Nintendo Direct,
Mhm.
everyone got excited about it. I mean, I did too because I was like, I can play this portably now at that time because that was novel back then. And it released and it was the worst version of the game because it had like poor audio compression, no cloud saves, performance issues, and it never got fixed. So to see them go from that to this, where now they are making a Switch 2 exclusive and it's directed by Miyazaki as well. So and he gets to go wild on whatever. I'm up for whatever his ride is. Like I'll be there day one after the
I
interview.
really like
It
just
was really good.
how different the characters are. Like you definitely had like some characters that look like they were out of Bloodborne. You had one that's like a steampunk character that has like a steam jetpack on its back flying.
Yeah.
You have one that turns into a dinosaur in that trailer. Like what the fuck is going on? You
And
know?
the funny thing is at the end they said, what is the deal with that rat who has wings? And they said we're making this game for Nintendo, so we just thought that would be cool. Or he just said something like that. That
All
was
right.
pretty funny.
So yeah, it looks wild. I'm very interested, and it is funny to see the like a lot of it is like that dark Victorian style era. People going, is it Bloodborne? Like no, like realistically, it can't be Bloodborne, but they're definitely. But I like that picture, that meme picture of like people always like, is it Bloodborne? It's like actually no, it can't be Bloodborne. It's Bloodborne, but it's underneath a different IP name or whatever. It's I
Legally
love that like
distinct.
From Software. Yeah, I love that From Software is just like they're not afraid to take risks and just like to like do totally different things. Like even though it might look similar, it's like a totally under a different totally IP name. It's totally different in terms of like game structure. It's not a their typical single player linear adventure. Like I know a lot of people love that stuff, and that's great and that's fine. But I like when From Software is experimental, and I love that like even Night Rain, they're experimenting with that even under similar aesthetics as well. It's like I said this like when they were showing it, like there's like really no development studio like From Software in terms of like you know especially now that they're big. Even before they became big, they were still experimenting with different stuff within different Armored Core titles. You had Ninja Blade, which like wasn't well received, but like they were trying different stuff with that. Kingsfield, it's just like they're not afraid to like just kind of not stick to what's familiar. They're willing to branch out often and in ways that you wouldn't expect.
I still got to play Armored Core. But yeah, they could easily announce just Dark Souls 4 and a different wrapper, Elden Ring 2. But like no, they're like we're gonna try something different. I guess speaking about From Software and Elden Ring, they did announce that Elden Ring Tarnished Edition is coming to Switch 2. It'll be the game as we know it with a few extra costumes that they already announced will be put into the other versions of the game. So it's effectively an upport of
They
Elden
have
Ring.
horse armor in it, but now.
hmm
uh and they also, I think, wasn't there like little new tidbits of like story notes or whatever that they're adding to that, and then all to other platforms as well. It's not just aesthetic. There's like just some other
I
more
thought it
stuff.
was all just cosmetic, but
I think the
maybe
press
not.
release only mentioned the horse armor, basically.
Oh, okay.
But
But yeah, tarnished edition. But as far as we know, that's not the content. It is not Switch 2 exclusive. It's like it's also being
yep,
filled up to other
they were
platforms.
upfront and said, yeah, anything that's bonus coming to the Switch 2 version will be put into the existing versions. At the same
And
time, maybe not, but it's yeah.
I'm very interested to see like what the performance is that on Switch 2, because the trailer for that on the direct looked like it wasn't running well either.
Right.
But
It did
I'm
not look great.
definitely gonna get that. But the problem is they've not confirmed the physical, and some retailers have started saying it's that key card thing. And
uh,
then yeah, so that's like the actual tarnished edition then, because like
mm,
yeah, not a fan of that. But I
okay.
will definitely get that because I remember when Elden Ring, you remember when it launched on PC, it was such a mess because it used to
Yeah.
just keep stuttering when you got near the tree sentinel. So I think I ended up playing it on Steam Deck all the way because Valve went and fixed it themselves, like the stuttering, because
Yeah,
that was
that's right.
Oh,
super
really?
funny because they yeah, they because the game had the shader issue, which I don't think is still fixed. I think everyone's just
No,
played it so much.
I went back to
Okay.
with the Erd tree, and I was just like, oh yeah, this game still runs like this on PC. I should have
Okay.
tried
Oh,
it on
okay.
Steam
So
Deck. Yeah.
yeah. So they never Valve fixed it because Steam Deck like is a single spec, so they pre-compiled the shaders and patched it into everyone's game, and it ran fine. So when like I'm definitely gonna compare the Switch to Steam Deck and ROG Ally and stuff. Like I'm just salivating at all that stuff. But yeah, the trailer was not a good showing because it had the typical FromSoft 30 FPS frame pacing issues, and it did look good at least. But this is something which I'm not. It's not really a game which I care about how it plays docked because like I could just play it on another platform that way. But like handheld is going to be more interesting because 1080 screen, so it has the and 120 FPS screen and VRR screen. The deck does not have a VRR screen, so this might end up feeling smoother in the end. Who knows? But yeah, I'm excited to try it out.
Mhm.
It's probably going to be expensive though because the Elden Ring with Shadow of the Erdtree physical edition they did is like $80, I think. So I
Oh wow.
expect this will be 70 minimum.
And then the
Or
Tarnish
they,
edition on Switch 2 will have Shadow of the Erd Tree already bundled in, I believe, right?
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
So
I think at this point we can talk about a few of the other third-party things. Some of these are just upcoming games announced that they will also be coming to Switch 2. Some are existing games that have announced that they'll be launching on Switch 2 at or around release date. Of course, last week on the podcast we talked about the announced Raidou Remastered, The Mystery of the Soulless Army. This week they just said it will also be coming to Switch 2 on its launch date of June 19th. We talked about Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade is announced for Nintendo Switch 2. I don't know if they specified a date or not on that, or just
No,
said
no
it's
no,
date.
no,
coming.
no.
No
Okay.
date. And I have to imagine Rebirth will come after it, sometime after it as
Mhm.
well.
This one has a little bit more nuance to it. Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma is launching on Nintendo Switch 2, and then what they've also announced since is that the version slated for Switch and PC that was going to come out in May has been pushed back, so it'll launch on PC, Switch, and Switch 2 all on June 5th.
Yeah, so they basically just delayed it a week, that's sensible.
Oh, was it only a week? Yeah.
But
Yeah,
you still
yeah.
can't
Delayed
order
from
the Switch 2 version. They were trying to tell people if you ordered the original Switch version, there'll be some news coming up on whether do they have a limited edition for Switch 2 or I don't know what the hell is going on yet.
The thing is, I spoke to some people about this as well, and some retailers as well. There's so much confusion and uncertainty about like whether they're going to do a limited edition, which regions are getting one. Then I was told the game is fully on cartridge from some people, but then I've seen listings now, which I've posted in the voice channel chat, where it's not going to have a full physical. It's going to be that Nintendo Switch 2 edition thing. And there's also they've confirmed that the Switch 2 game is going to be $10 more expensive than Switch 1 and PC for Rune
True.
Factory
Yeah.
and the other game which we're going to talk about soon, Story of Seasons. This I kind of expected because we saw this happen with the PS5 and Series X as well, where some like even Dragon Age the Veil Guard is $10 more expensive on PS5 and Series X than it is on PC. But I noted that Spike Chunsoft, one of their games, which we'll talk about that, they specified in the press release that it's priced the same. So there is something there.
A few other third-party announcements. This one was a bit unexpected, I think. Wild Hearts, the Monster Hunter like from well, at least the console, the previous version was published by EA, but I think it's coming to Switch 2 on July 25th, but not published by EA.
Yeah, I believe it's Koei
Published by
Tecmo
Koei
now.
Tecmo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I believe
Yes.
Koei Tecmo.
So Wild Hearts is
Interesting.
coming on July 25th under the name Wild Hearts S. And interestingly enough, they talk about it having 4-player co-op rather than 3-player co-op. So that's a
That's
Switch
a
2
really
exclusive.
interesting. Yeah, that's a really weird like feature to have. Like, oh, because definitely one of the like the one of the complaints about the base release was like being restricted to 3 players co-op because so many people played with four other. I mean, they're used to 4-player parties because of Monster Hunter. So I wonder how this affects the game balance wise because you have to imagine this game was like deliberately made with 3 players in mind for balance reasons. They're if they're gonna tune up and they're gonna tune like any of the numbers in this game to accommodate the full 4 player party now.
I think the worry with that is, besides balances, since this is 4 players, it's like it has its own name, it probably and likely will not have crossplay while the other versions all have it.
Oh yeah, that's true too. Absolutely, I think this will be its own isolated version.
So, like, I saw some people speculate that maybe if Koei Tecmo has gotten publishing rights back for it, because while EA Originals published it, it was still owned by Koei Tecmo, as far as I could tell. So, there's a hope that they patch all the versions, but I feel like going and updating a game which has not been updated in a long time to add like such a drastic change, I don't see that happening. And I did look up why it had 3 player co-op and not 4 player. And apparently they said due to the power of the Karakuri, which is the building mechanic, like people said it's like Fortnite Monster Hunter because of how you build stuff and you use
Yeah.
that during gameplay. But they said because of how overpowered that is, or they said because of the power of the Karakuri, 3 player combat provides the best balance for maintaining whatever sense of co-op combat and tension, as they say. To me, I always thought it had 3 player co-op because the game was not optimized well, like on any platform. PC, I still think it's one of the worst PC ports that exists in the last 10 years. I feel like they just did 3 players because 4 players would just make it too hectic and it would tank performance wise. But the Switch has some footage revealed. I think on the website there's some private YouTube videos or unlisted YouTube videos. It does not look good. It's definitely one of the games I want to try out of curiosity. I
Right.
don't expect it to be good on Switch too.
It's a frustrating game because you could see definitely like they had something like a really interesting idea on their hands, but it was like a lot of like it was held back because of like just the technical performance of it. Like I've had so many friends, including me, that like I really wanted to give it like an earnest shot, but like I didn't like the way it was running, and a lot of my
Yeah.
friends like definitely fell off because like well, it runs like ass.
Yeah, I was checking the Steam reviews, and yeah, they're still mostly negative,
Yeah.
primarily because of technical
It's
issues.
not
Yeah,
been
that
updated in a while. And like this has Hamauzu's music and they've not released it officially in any format. I'll never
oh
forgive them
wow,
for that.
Wow.
that's
Yeah.
crazy.
They messed up.
So yeah, definitely a surprise announcement. Maybe not optimistic, but hopeful that it'll be kind of a shot in the arm for that because it does have a lot of potential. That's kind of why we recognized it that year when it came out in our top 10. Kunitsugami Path of the Goddess will be launching. Will be coming to Switch 2 as a launch title.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
talked about Borderlands 4 is coming to Switch 2 at some point this year. Did you have a comment on Kunitsugami?
yeah. You said, and then they'll support mouse and gyro controls. I'm kind of interested to see
Oh
how
yeah.
that is integrated in there. Pretty interesting because that game has it has like some strategy elements where you have to like almost like put like a tower defense esque formation down before waves
Mhm.
start coming in. So I wonder if that'll help with that aspect of the game.
Uh, Hades 2 coming to Nintendo Switch. And then No Sleep for Konami Date was announced, of course, the week prior. Will also be coming to Nintendo Switch 2. Same song for Witchbrook showed up, a couple weeks ago for the first time in a long time. Also planned to launch to Nintendo Switch 2 this winter. And then East 10 Proud Nordics. Obviously not officially announced anywhere in the West, but will be announced for will be releasing for Switch 2 in Japan this year.
Yeah,
So
they
there's a few things I want to get to before East End. So Hades 2, uh for some reason they already announced it's gonna be 60 FPS, I believe, on Switch 2, which is a little weird because the game on Steam Deck runs at like well above 90 FPS if you remove the frame rate cap. And I feel like Supergiant is a bit conservative with these console ports because when Hades 1 came to PlayStation 5 and Xbox, it was also capped at 60 when you can run it at like 144 FPS on Steam Deck. So that is like a minor disappointment from that. But if they do cross save with PC like they did for the original Hades, I'll be there day one, like without question.
I wonder if it's just like
So
a market thing, whether like because like I don't see a lot of like console players. The majority of them really care about like going over 60 FPS, especially
Oh,
like
definitely agree. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with that. It's like it feels like, how you when people talk about 1440 support, how many TVs have that? It's just a monitor thing. And most people who play on consoles are going to be playing on TVs. So I
Yeah.
get that as well, but it just feels like a missed opportunity because
Mhm.
right now, if like I'll have access to this Steam Deck, the ROG Ally, and the Switch 2 might give me the best like screen with VRR or whatever and HDR, which I have on the Steam Deck now, but it's not going to run as smooth as it does over there. So it's just this
Yeah, yeah.
weird thing. But yeah, if there's cross save, it'll be good. With East and Proud Nordics, I wonder if this ends up like E's Memoir, The Oath and Felghana, where it's timed exclusive and it launches first on Switch 2 in Japan. Then they do a port to like PlayStation later, and then they finally bring it over to the West on Steam because, like we've spoken about this before, they kind of killed NIS America's legs with announcing this just weeks, or was it a week after or a month after the English
I think it was
release
like
of
a month.
yeah, so after the base Ease 10, which we thought was the full game at that point, after that launch, they just announced, oh, here's a super upgraded version, an enhanced version. But we're not announcing platforms, is what they did. That told me that it's probably coming to Switch 2 because you can't announce Switch 2 until Nintendo does. And they did announce it, but they haven't announced it on their website or anything. It's just it was there in the sizzle reel, I believe, in the Japanese direct, and then they put
Yeah.
out a commercial for it which confirmed it officially, and they posted about it on Blue Sky as well. But it's just weird. I guess we'll have to wait and see because they have Trails in the Sky first chapter, which is going to be their flagship title for this year, I believe. So they have to squeeze this in somewhere in Japan. We'll see where. And Trails in the
Remember,
Sky is not announced for Switch 2.
remember when Trails of the Sky the first was only announced for Switch initially as well?
Yeah. That's true. That's true.
Yeah, so it could be like one of those like delayed like console like I imagine this will still come out, you know, at PlayStation Day and date in Japan, but maybe it's just like the announcement is delayed because of like they reached an agreement with Nintendo to announce this first on Switch 2.
Well, also just a small thing, like the East Memoir, Oath and Felghana, never released for PC.
Yeah, true.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. I forgot about that actually because when I think when I wrote about that, I had some people say that like I feel like this release was weird because the PC version of Ease Oath and Felghana, I think it's $20 or $14.99 normally. So it's like this version was double, and I don't think the upgrades are worth it because it has issues with turbo mode and also like it's good if you don't play the PC version, but you have this weird thing where some version has more features than the other, but the other version is better technically. And we're almost getting into Square Enix territory, which you know how they are with some of their delayed
Well, and
releases.
also the PC version of Oath and Felghana was like the original PC version,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then like they actually Xseed's done this a few times. They ended up like kind of backporting. I don't know if that's the right word. Like some of the PSP differences, like voices and a few other things into it.
Yeah, the music options as well. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah. I think
So
they had one person working on it, like they had for a lot of their ports back
Sarah,
then
right?
on PC. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
Yeah,
Sarah.
Sarah
Yeah,
Lane. Yeah.
yeah.
but I don't know. I've seen from some people that played it, there are like some lighting issues and like in the Melmore's version that you don't even get to see, which is kind of ish. But it's not the perfect port, but it runs really well.
So yeah, we'll have to see what happens with Proud Nordics. But every time you see NIS America post about like they have it on discount for like 15% off, or like they talk about the limited edition on this, so every reply is where is Proud Nordics? And
I
I
think they
wonder
got
how they
screwed
feel about.
hard from that
Yeah, they did.
announcement.
They
It's
did.
like, man, why would you do this?
I think one of the last third-party things that we didn't bring up yet is that Deltarune from Toby Fox, chapters 1 through 4, will be launching alongside the Nintendo Switch 2 on June 5th, as well as launching on Switch, PlayStation, and Steam.
The
So I'm
live
not a big.
theater watching
Mm.
loved the Deltarune, like Toby Fox's little dog guy showing up. He loved it.
Yep.
Yeah,
And then and then
chapters one and
Borderland
two
right
have,
after
have been
that.
out. Yeah, 1 and 2 have been out. 3 and 4 are new. I don't think 3 and 4 are the final ones. I think
No, they're not.
I think they're like good. The final ones are gonna be like 7 chapters planned. I think for Deltarune.
How
So
long are these chapters? Does anyone play Deltarune here?
I haven't played. I'm waiting for the
I
update
was
to come
basically
out, so.
when the first couple of chapters came out, I was just like, I'll just wait for all the rest of the chapters first, right? And
Yep,
didn't realize it would
me
take this
too.
long, but
So I don't know how long
The
each
one
chapter is.
I haven't played them either because I'm also waiting. But the one interesting thing from the official website announcement for this is we have like a small nugget of what to expect because he has a FAQ thing which says if I buy Deltarune on Switch 1 or Switch 2, do I get the other version as well? And the answer is we're hoping to make it so that you only have to pay one price for both Switch and Switch 2 versions, but we're ironing out the details. We'll share more on this soon. And then there's a thing which says in certain regions, local laws may require us to charge a small fee. That's how it is in Japan for some games. So that's not unexpected. But this tells me that there's still no clarity for developers on whether, like how on PlayStation, sometimes when you get a PS5 review code or you buy a PlayStation version, you get both PS4 and PS5. This tells us we might not have that happening with Switch 2.
Yeah,
I think this is like the
hopefully.
only bit of information so far. But again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but Nintendo needs to like be clear about this and post some more
It's so chaotic,
support thing.
man. It's
Yeah.
there's so many things up in the air with this thing, inside and out. It's just crazy how messy it is all.
And I think that kind of covers us for third party. And I think we've kind of touched on everything first party in terms of we talked about the Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom updates. Those upgrades will be paid, but we don't know the paid amount. We do know that it's included if you have Switch Online. But that's specific to those two games. Switch Online, we don't know if it offers any other like pre-included upgrades for the Switch 2 other than the two Zelda games. We talked about Age of Imprisonment was announced as the newest game for Hyrule Warriors, so the third in that series. We kind of wanted to see an Age of Calamity upport for Switch 2, but no news on that. Let's see here. I'm just kind of making sure I don't inadvertently miss anything. We did talk about very briefly that Echoes of Wisdom and Scarlet and Violet are going to get free Switch 2 updates. So I think we covered everything. Adam, was there any other like last, or anyone here really, any other last Switch 2 topics before we move on to like kind of everything else that happened this week?
I don't think so.
That's it for now. But I think I'm sure
So
we'll have developments.
just one thing about the free patches which they're doing for like Link's Awakening, Echoes of Wisdom, and Scarlet and Violet. I picked those obviously because those are in our scope. But they also announced upgrades for like updates, I should say, for ARMS and a few other games. But they don't specify what these updates add. They just say these updates may address resolution, frame rate, or add functionality like game share. So I have no idea what to expect because again, this is just vague wording, and we don't even know when these patches are coming out, I believe. So hopefully this is something they also address before launch because I would like to know what they're gonna do to some of these games. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, and they also released like a game compatibility list on some website as well, right? And then like a
Oh
lot of
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah. The
still up in the air.
Kite did a list for us which covers which RPGs have issues booting up or with some compatibility on Switch 2. And for some reason, just the first Final Fantasy Pixel remaster, not 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, just Final Fantasy 1 Pixel remaster has some issues on Switch 2. And I do we know if they're going to address these that they're working on them, or is this is what's happening for launch?
I think Nintendo's going to each developer and publisher and saying like the asking them to address it pretty much like Nintendo's basically like doing like the legwork of like asking them to like, hey, please fix it up for Switch system. But it's obviously going to be on a case by case basis whether the individual developer and or publisher will get around to doing like fixing them up.
It's unfortunate because Tokyo Xanadu EX Plus, the Switch version, has the updated localization, so now that's not going to be playable without issues on the newest hardware. And that's the only version which has that officially as well. So that is
Yeah.
unfortunate.
So hopefully Falcom addresses that. But
Yeah.
there's also has a trickle down effect too because Falcom has been porting like their latest Trails games onto Nintendo hardware. So I imagine they benefit greatly with the Switch 2 hardware.
There was one other thing that I snuck up here at the top. Announced 2 weeks ago at the previous Nintendo Direct, Story of Seasons Grand Bazaar is also launching for Switch 2 on August 27th. And then alongside this, Aaron did put up a few features for Story Seasons Grand Bazaar preview opportunity, as well as an interview talking about remastering the, or more remaking the original Nintendo DS game. This was with Hikaru Nakano, who is the game's manager.
Yeah,
Both of those features are up on the site. Go ahead, Josh.
the interview is a good read, like because going from why they decided to specifically choose the Story of Seasons 3 make, and also kind of fun behind the scenes of like whether they should allow players themselves to individually manually adjust like the prices of their own markets, and like they had a internal discussion whether they should allow that or not, which is a lot of fun
Just
insight.
exploit the market.
Yeah.
So in non-Switch 2 news, not a lot of things, but a handful of things. Well, actually, two more features on the site first before news. We do have obviously the shadow dropped SaGa Frontier 2 remastered. We have a few guides up on the site at rpgsite.net. And then Mikhail also did the Steam Deck, Nintendo Switch, and mobile version comparison. So obviously that game is just recently launched. So Mikhail, I don't know if there's any big highlight from your takeaways with SaGa Frontier 2 remastered.
Yeah, so Chao played it and finished it, and he did a scenario breakdown and a trophy guide. I think no one's done a trophy guide on that game yet, so that's going to be useful. It has this weird issue which I've run into with a lot of games, because he told me the game ran weirdly for him on PC. He had performance issues which turned out to be Discord overlay related, I believe, which is pretty
Yeah, it
funny.
was Discord overlay. I was trying to figure out why this game run like ass in full screen, and it turns out it's Discord overlay. Okay, this feature is scrapped. I am never turning it back on.
Yeah, turn off Discord overlay because we're gonna get into it, but like I tried to play Monster Hunter Wilds Title Update 1, and then I was like, why is it running like ass even more so than usual? Discord overlay turned out never turning it back.
Yeah, because the Discord PC app had a recent update which added Onyx view mode, which is like super duper dark mode, but also made the Discord overlay like turn on when I've never turned it on. I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
Why is this here?
Yeah.
But beyond that, it's just that I think I played all the SaGa games on Switch to try out the ports, because I think I finished them on other platforms except for SaGa Scarlet Graces. And I think this is the only SaGa game on Switch which launched without any issues that I could tell. Like SaGa Frontier feels a bit laggy. But when I was playing SaGa Frontier 2 Remastered, it reminded me of what Adam said about Tales of Graces F Remastered. Everything's so snappy and quick, it just feels good to play. And I thought about that a lot while I was playing every single version of this. So I was like, good job, Square Enix. Like, you didn't screw this one up.
Also, I'm the first
Faint
guy to
praise.
post the ending on YouTube, probably.
Good job, Chow. What a trooper.
Yeah.
Holy.
What a god
Yeah.
gamer.
I think
I like-
did it in like, what, 24 hours or something, like from
Well,
launch?
nobody posted in English. You can find so much resource in Japanese, but the English resource is like non-existent. I think there's like only 17 concurrent players on Steam at one time. It was like, oh man, Second Front
Oh, I never even
needs
thought
to
about
stand up.
that.
Chow
Steam
is
concurrent.
Chow is literally carrying the Western Frontier 2 community on his back single-handed.
I believe in this game.
So a few other updates. Here's one that's very clearly in our wheelhouse. A new website has been launched for the Final Fantasy IX 25th anniversary. And of course, there's been rumors for forever about Final Fantasy IX. Is it getting remastered? Is it getting remake? We'll see it for the Switch too, surely. Nothing has materialized there. However, they have talked about, celebrating the 25th anniversary of the release, talking about new vinyl soundtrack options, including a newly recorded version of Melodies of Life, which is kind of its big like lyrical theme.
I didn't look into the merchandise too much, but isn't the vinyl title, doesn't it say something like A Timeless Tale?
Yeah.
And people are speculating like that name is actually kind of floated around before, like that's some subtitle for the remake. The remake that was in an NVIDIA leak eons ago.
And an Epic Game Store leak, apparently, which even had some DLC items or something like that. Like, we don't know what's going on with this remake, if it exists or not officially. But yeah, it has leaked in some databases. And not only the vinyl, even those new figures they announced have like new character models used.
Yeah, they like these character models look updated, or like, is this based off of something? So
And the specific date of the 25th anniversary is July 7th. I just want to get that
oh,
date out. Go ahead.
okay. One of a YouTuber that I don't remember, actually put together a video compilation of people who saw Bravely Default in the Nintendo Direct and saw Anya's, who sort of looks like Garnet in a way, and people like who thought at first it was a Final Fantasy IX remake, but it was Bravely Default
Oh.
instead.
Oh. Not
So
good.
so you could have that right next to your. Is this Bloodborne or Bloodborne 2?
I think I saw a lot of people disappointed, and I'd be the opposite because I want Bravely Default Remaster remake more than FF9. So I'd be like in the minority on that.
Yeah, I mean it's a one hell of a game. I know a lot of people who have Bravely Default 1 as their favorite of the series.
Mhm.
Yeah.
A few other upcoming updates for previously announced games or previously released games. Suikoden 1 and 2 HD Remaster, a game that I know several of us have just replayed through. I know Josh, Adam, and I have played it. I'm not sure if Mikhail or Chow did. But pretty well received. Pretty fun games for me, especially to visit for the first time. Konami is going to support those to try to fix some lingering issues with some bugs, some quest progression, some lighting issues, but also a few quality of life updates, which I've kind of championed here. I do like the very first bullet here. Planned fix, no date yet, but a planned fix so that there's an option to close the game. Because right now, if you play on PC, there is no option to close the game.
I love they list that as a quality of life feature, the option to close the
Yep.
game on PC. It's like, yeah, I imagine.
I remember
Great
when I
quality of
first got
life.
review code for this, I was just like, either it's not here or I'm dumb and blind, but I don't see a way to close this. Like, there's no close
And for
button.
people who don't know, like you're not locked in there. You can just press Alt F4 on like any application to close it. So like, a lot of
Yeah,
people just press Alt F4 on PC games to immediately.
I like to
close
close my games properly.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
a few of the more substantial ones. Right now, if you go into like multiple turbo speed in battle, it also increases the sound of the battle track and the sound effects. So an option to change the background music playback speed if you're using the speed up function. So this is like how Trails games, for instance, a lot of other games with turbo modes do it, is that it doesn't actually affect the audio, it just affects the visuals, which I imagine can be kind of tricky under the hood. So I'm not surprised that it got missed, but they're going to address it. They'll be able to toggle the dash maneuver on or off rather than holding a button. Whether or not you want the autosave.
The autosave is so
This one,
silly.
yeah, it's right now
Uh,
it just autosaves whenever you enter a screen that has a save point on it. So I guess they're not changing how it works. You can just turn it off, which is something, I suppose. This one is a little bit vague because I don't know exactly how it's going to be implemented, but adding info on whether an item can be equipped and how your stats change if you're retrieving it from your storage. Because right now, there's really no good comparison. Like, oh, I've got a magic garb in my storage. I think that's better than what I have equipped on some of these characters, but I don't really know. So you're going to have to pull it out of storage and then go to that character, go to the equip screen, and then like actually take a look. So some looking at how to streamline that so you can say like, oh, this is better for whoever.
It's also really
Good.
good for just knowing whether it can be, because some people can't equip certain types of like equipment at all, and you have to kind of
No,
either
good point. Yeah.
mentally remember, or just kind of fiddle around with the menus endlessly,
Mm.
which is not fun. Definitely not fun, especially the first week in it.
So yeah, no date on these updates, but a good update. And there's I kind of skipped the details about what's being fixed in terms of certain progression. But fixing up some bugs, adding some quality of life features. No date, but they've announced what they're working on and what the planned like patch notes should look like.
This is kind of
Uh,
maybe obvious, but um, it's kind of funny how we take these sorts of like updates for granted sometimes, especially in the modern day. When like the original Suikoden 2 or Suikoden 1 or 2 on PlayStation, when those released and shipped and printed on discs, those were just whatever was there, and there were plenty of
Yeah.
bugs in those games. Plenty of bugs. So the fact that they can even
I-
just say, hey, we're going to update and kind of squash a few of these small things, it's like, thank you. Like that
Why? Like,
that wasn't always
even
the
in your
case.
walkthrough, you're like, this is bugged. If you like turn in these recipes at the wrong point, you're gonna lock
Yeah.
yourself out of a thing. And it's like that's just what we had to live with back in the day on every game.
Right.
So yeah,
Even like
kerfuffles.
revered RPGs, like like several entries of Final Fantasy series, like some stats just didn't work right at all, and
Nope.
that's what you lived with forever until
Mhm.
you had certain versions of the game that got remade that fixed them or could be patched out. Like
Mhm.
original versions of those games, it's like okay, well,
Whatever's there is there.
yep.
Half the shit from Pokemon Red and Blue original version didn't work at all how it was supposed to.
Yeah.
Even as a kid, I knew focus energy did nothing.
I knew it.
If I remember correctly, it's supposed to like quadruple your critical rate, but it actually divides it by 4.
Or something like that. Imagine being the programmer that put that in, like, crap, I divided instead of multiplied. So we also have an update for the upcoming Fuga Melodies of Steel 2, which is releasing, I believe,
May 30th.
Not three.
May? Yeah,
The,
May. Yeah, late May.
Melodies of Steel
So
3,
sorry,
not 2.
3. Melodies of Steel 3 will be releasing in May, and they've announced the new fast mode, where it's basically an alteration from normal mode that's specific to like skipping encounters to only focus on story encounters. So it seems like it's more of a skip than a turbo, which is kind of interesting. I've not played the first two games, so I'm not exactly sure like if you could imagine playing those first two with the fast mode because
I
they are also backporting this ability to those games.
It seems like the whole idea is we want people to buy Fuga 3, but they have to play through 1 and 2 first because it is a pretty connected storyline. So like we want people to kind of just blitz through those as fast as possible. So
Yeah, I mean,
Hmm.
I'm definitely interested in this to just like refresh my memory on the story of 1, and I never played 2, but I'm definitely gonna turn this on for my first playthrough too because like I kind of just want to see like I hearing that like 2 is interesting, but it's like it's kind of a slog to like play through because of it being so similar to the first one. It's like that doesn't really interest me if it's so similar to the first one. I've heard so many of my friends like kind of burn out on 2 because like it's like they like it, but they feel so burnt out by like just they just feel like it's too long for its own good. Especially where it feels like a DLC to 1, but it's a full game instead. Um, and they just burnt out on it. So this isn't like the worst idea in the world, uh, from CyberConnect 2's perspective.
We have a few other trailers for some upcoming games. We could have talked about this when we were talking about From Software. Of course, the upcoming Elden Ring Night Rain coming out. Is it literally the same day?
Not 30th of May.
So they're now kind of going through their trailers. I don't know if this is our first one, but one of the first trailers for the playable characters in the game. This one focusing on a character called Iron Eye, who basically seems like a magic archer. Shows a lot of like bow abilities, a little bit of traversal, ranged combat, things like that. Kind of
Yeah,
a Senate.
it's a new character that they wasn't in the closed beta, so they're just announcing this one for the first time, pretty much.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah,
and not really a primer in how it plays, but more of a here's some cool shit this character can do, so you can kind of glean a little bit of how it plays. So
it's like
very,
that's like a dragon piercer from Monster Hunter at one point in that trailer.
Mhm.
But yeah, looks like a fun character. It's a range focused primary weapons being it's like a bow and arrow. Um, might be cool.
Mhm. We also got another character trailer for Claire Obscure Expedition 33. This one focusing on, I don't know how to pronounce this, Sciel. This character I know the least about, mainly because I don't think they were available in the preview uh, that Scott was able to cover. So I've not really seen how this character plays. Of course, this character trailer shows off a little bit of it. Very much like a gambler slash tarot card archetype. So I'm not sure how much like RNG or luck plays into it, or if it's more prescribed than that. But that's kind of the theming is cards with different abilities. Um, so again, not really a primer video that details exactly how it works, but more just giving you the flavor of the character and how they're integrated in the story. So another for the last DLC of Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes, the Chapter of Markus. Of course, these have been releasing over the last month. Got a new trailer for its upcoming launch on some date?
No, it's out. It's out.
I'm trying to figure.
It's out
Oh, it is
now.
out. Oh,
The launch
okay. I
trailer.
was gonna say like, where's the date? Okay, so it's a
When I
trailer
have
for the launch.
time, I'll blitz through these 3 DLCs, and like I've said before, I have no expectations, and apparently they're
Apparently,
way
apparently
overpriced
they're like
for what you
40
get.
minutes a
So
piece. So there you go.
Awesome.
this is like the kind of like the worst case scenario for like the Kickstarter is nature of the game, where it feels like we promised expansions and now we got to do them, and they kind of suck. So
Yeah.
whatever.
One last trailer for a game releasing just in a week or so. Mandragora, the Witch of the Whispers of the Witch Tree. I guess it's more like 2 weeks. This one's focusing entirely on skill trees, so this is very much a gameplay focused trailer. And it's interesting enough, but I don't really know like how much I can distill. Like you can learn about this game's skill trees from this trailer, but you can't really judge it until we have it in our hands. But there's 6 different classes, each with their own tree. The trees seem pretty expansive. The way they describe it, they seem, we've talked about in the past, like I want my talents or my traits or whatever they're called in the game to feel meaningful. I don't want them to be like 1 or 2% buffs. They talked about like how one of the classes you can trait yourself to be able to equip a tower shield. You can mix and match across classes to some extent to like improve bleed chance or like dot abilities. So it seems promising, but it's also the sort of thing where we can't really judge it until we really can kind of like evaluate it in our hands.
One small
But
mechanical thing that's a little bit different based on my preview at GDC, or my time with it at GDC, was like some nodes on the skill tree, you'll go to a node and you'll actually have like a choice. Like you can either power up this stat or this stat, and then you click it, and then that node is done. So like it isn't just get all the nodes. It's like you actually have to get to a node and then you have to make a couple of choices. Something like that. It's been a while and I don't remember the exact details, but it's some small little twists in terms of how the nodes work on the tree.
They do say, I forget the exact wording, but like you will be able to respec it. The way they word it in the trailer is like maybe not right away. Maybe it's like a certain character that you meet that allows you or something like that. So like you do experiment because you won't be locked in once you select something, which is always good to have in some fashion. And then we got a story trailer for another April release that's upcoming. The LUNAR, is it LUNAR or LUNAR? LUNAR Remastered Collection. This trailer, it's a mostly the animated cutscenes, though it does show some small snippets of gameplay, so you do get a little bit of a greater look at how the remastered version looks. Not as clean as like the recent HD 2D or even like the Suikoden like pixel art. It does look a little bit more like remaster from 5 or 6 years ago, like the Grandia, where it's like it looks a little kind of over processed, a little bit smoothed out, but I also don't really have a good feel for how the game originally looked. But the story trailer does show off like 30 to 40 seconds of gameplay from the actual pixel styles, and then the rest is just animated cutscenes. And as someone who has no idea what the story is, it was a little bit incomprehensible. Like I have no idea who these characters are or what the conflict is. But enjoyable enough. I don't know enough to get spoiled or to know whether or not I'm getting spoiled for watching the story trailer. So in that respect, I think it's safe to watch. But of course, that's up to you.
Yeah, Lunar is one of my blind spots. Never played it. So I'll play through the remaster. I played through the Grandia remasters. Like I don't know if this will be the ideal way to play it, but it'll be a way to play
At least
it.
it's available.
It's
Yes.
it's accessible, it's available, and I could buy it and play it. So
Yeah, I'll wait to see what people think about it.
One sales update. And we'll talk a little bit more about than just sales here. Monster Hunter Wilds has already sold 10 million units worldwide, and of course, recently we just had the launch of Title Update 1, which we've talked about exactly what's in it because we talked about it was detailed at a Capcom event just a few weeks ago. But I haven't had a chance to go hands on yet, so I think Mikhail and Josh have, so you can talk about Title Update 1.
People are getting filtered out there, man, in Title Update 1.
Oof.
So they added they added high rank repeatable fight Zoshia. You can only fight it in its like arena that you fight it in the story. Unfortunately, it's kind of like a Jin the Han situation, where it only shows up at very just like it's only at a distinct arena. And they added Mizutsune, both the regular version, both are high rank, but you have regular version and a tempered Mizutsune. But both are like you unlock them through like by talking to like a marked NPC on the map. Um, for the Mizutsune fight as well, you need to finish the first step of the fishing side quest, side mission to unlock it. So yeah, because it goes through that NPC. And there, Zoshia like has like a billion fucking HP, which is fine, whatever. The actually long fight has some mechanics like that are like a little bit like Fatalis. Fun fight in my opinion. Mizutsune, like its HP not so like its HP is like it still goes down pretty fast, but it hits fucking hard. You basically it has like a mode where it's more akin to its Soul Seer variant from past titles, where like it has like a blue flame over its eyes, and like it has like flame bubbles that hurt a lot. But the thing that really is killing people is that it has a really fast flip move during enraged, and if you get hit by that flip move, if you don't have enough armor, it could one shot you pretty much. People are once I see that move, I'm like, someone's gonna die to this, and every time at least one person gets carded by that move in that in that fight, which is fun to see because it's like an actual challenging fight in this game. It's a slippery motherfucker, of course. Has bubbles, like it's iconic bubble move set. Um, it's a fight edition. They also added the Grand Hub in this version, which like you can pretty much access right away after you talk to an NPC. It opens up. Has most of the facilities there. Aside from like, unfortunately, it doesn't have the support ship NPCs. So have to go back to the desert town to go check on your support ship. And it doesn't have the smelting from the iron from the basin area. So those are like the two key NPCs that you're still missing for the Grand Hub. Hopefully they'll add. I don't know why they're not there. Um, so like, but other than that, you can pretty much do everything and anything there. Um, for the most part. And there it's fine. It's totally okay. Um, they still haven't added tempered arc tempered Raidou yet. That'll be added like near the end of the month through an event quest. And both the Mizutsune and Zoshia both have weapons and armor sets that can be crafted, and some of them are like pretty good. Like the Zoshia, I think people are starting to come around on because it has like a exclusive skill called Super Recovery, which basically gives you like passive health regen even past like red health. Um, so you can just have like reliable like you know regen over time with that set. How about
Mikhail,
you,
have you had a
Mikhail?
chance to
Yeah.
try any of the new
Yeah,
fights?
yeah, yeah. What happened is like the direct was on. I forgot already the time frame. It was on either Wednesday or Thursday night my time. And after I finished posting all the news, I was like, okay, cool. Now I can chill tomorrow and work on my SaGa article. And then I woke up and I saw Monster Hunter title update. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I forgot this. So I was like, let me play a bit. So I booted it up, and a lot of there are three main NPCs or quest chains which start when you like boot up the game after this title update. One is like he said for Mizutsune, you have to go and do the fishing thing. But I already have the platinum trophy, so I've already finished all those quests. So I just had to talk to the NPC and get that quest chain
Yeah, me
started, and I
too.
did it.
One of my
Yeah,
friends, I didn't know it unlocked because he didn't do any of the fishing ones. He's like, "How do I unlock
yeah.
Mizutsune?" And like, that's how I learned about it because one of my friends just will not touch any of the side missions in that game. He's like, "I don't fucking care about any of these side."
Yeah, so what happened then is I did Mizutsune and I was like, okay, the theme is good. It doesn't annoy me, like it doesn't rise. The fight is decent. It's pretty easy. Then there's a you have to talk to one NPC in Suja, which is like near the end of the story. And then you get taken to the Grand Hub, which is the gathering hub. And I said, okay, this is cool. And I realized what you did as well. I was like, why are they keeping that smelting specifically in that one location? Like you can't access it anywhere else. So okay, Capcom wants to do that. But then there's another quest where you talk to Alma, the handler, and she says, I lost my glasses. And I was like, okay, I don't care. And then my friend texted me and said, dude, what is this glasses quest? And I'm like, I don't know. I just got the prompt for it. He says, I don't know how to do it. Can you check? I said, okay. I started doing the quest, and it's very vague in some of its requirements. Like, usually, Monster Hunter side quests will just tell you, go and look for something and there'll be a point on the map and you just follow that. But for this quest, one of the NPCs is not marked, so you have to know who you have to talk to. This quest ended up being a little it ended up being a little vague and weird, so I just decided to do a guide on it on a whim, and it seems to be doing good because a lot of people are getting confused on how to solve this quest because you have to talk to one specific NPC who doesn't have a marker on their head like every other quest. Then you have to go somewhere else, talk to more NPCs, and then you have to come back in a specific weather and time condition which you can set. Then you can finish the quest.
Jesus.
So I ended up doing this, and I was like, okay. And yeah, you end up unlocking a customization for Alma, the handler, where you can give her red glasses and you can craft glasses for yourself as layered armor and as actual armor. So that's something which they added, which everyone seems to like. But for the Zoshia boss, I did notice a lot of people are carting even to Zoshia because it
Yeah.
has some attacks where if you don't like break some crystals or something, I don't remember what they're called already. I just did the fight 10 times yesterday. It can do an attack which does a lot of damage with explosions and stuff, and it has some fatalis like things. It is fun. It's not difficult. It's a little fun. At least for me, it's not difficult, but the armor is interesting.
Yeah.
So I will probably craft. I didn't have time to do more of it. I wanted to just finish off updating all my guides and then get back to SaGa. So Tempered Mizutsune is amazing though. Like I must have done that 15 times. I was like taking a break from doing stuff and doing two hunts and coming back. I love that fight. Uh,
You
People
really,
are
but
carting.
but you said you don't you found the Rise theme annoying, but the theme is here for Mizutsune better. I don't know. I feel
Yes.
the opposite. I like the Rise theme for Mizutsune.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm in the minority on this because
Wow.
anytime people ask me about Rise, I like Sunbreak a lot. Like it's one of my favorite games in the last few years. But Rise, I just look at it with disdain in a way now, and I'm more annoyed because they ruined Rajang's theme in Rise. I don't know how you feel about that.
No, I thought it was fine. I mean, it's different, but I don't think they ruined it. But that's
Yeah, so
interesting though.
yeah, so the Iceborne Rajang theme I thought was perfect, and I wasn't happy with it in Rise. I think with Mizutsune, it's a combination of them overusing the shamisen because they do that in every Rise song, right? That
Oh
was their
yeah,
main
absolutely.
flavor.
Because they
Yeah,
have the Asian theme to it. Yeah.
yeah. So I think with Mizutsune, it was just like I think I had come. Mizutsune was first in GU, right? It was one of the Fated Four.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I think what happened with me is Rise was a lot easier than GU, and like Rise was like low rank and high rank, while GU everything was like just super hard. So I think what happened
Yeah.
there also with Mizutsune was I just found it super easy compared to what it was in the previous game where I experienced it. So it was like a combination of that and the shamisen and stuff. I was like, no, I'm not feeling this theme.
It is nice that Mizutsune is like a legit
Yeah,
like difficult fight here now because in
yeah,
Rise, like you said, it was since it was available in low rank,
yeah.
it didn't feel it felt too toothless in Rise.
Yeah. The Soul Seer stuff is really nice to see because it just tells me that whenever they add more monsters, they aren't afraid to like, just crib stuff from different variants they had
Yeah.
before. So, like if they ever add Valstrax over here, I feel like it'll be a combination of like Crimson Glow. It may even add some Risen Valstrax moves, which was like, the final
Oh yeah,
Valstrax they
I
added in
hope so.
Sunbreak.
If they ever announce it, like
Yeah.
it makes me think of like what they're gonna do with Legaia Chris in this one. Then
I've not actually fought Lagiacrus outside of Monster Hunter Story, so it'll be new for me when they do that.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'll be very interested to see how they adapt its moveset here, especially since there's no underwater mechanics
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Wilds.
But yeah, I'm pretty happy with title update one. A lot of my friends are like, let's hunt tempered Mizutsune, and I'm like, No, I have to do other stuff now. Maybe next week." But yeah, I did the bounties, like I do those, and I did the events also. They started adding arena challenge quests now, which weren't in the game before. So now these are like you have preset equipment, and you choose like one of I believe six weapons are allowed for this quest. And if you finish it, you can unlock a pendant, which is like a cosmetic. Oh yeah, and speaking of cosmetics, they shipped the first cosmetic DLC pack for people who own the premium deluxe edition, and you can buy it separately and like in Capcom fashion. If you bought the $110 edition for the game, they released DLC on top of that. So even if people who bought that still have to pay
Ugh,
for more DLC if you want all the cosmetic stuff. So that's also a thing. And it's all like worthless DLC, like pendants and a new costume for Alma, which makes her look like the handler in Monster Hunter World. Like they're gonna milk this stuff for sure. Like it's gonna be their
for
new
sure.
cash cow.
Yeah.
for like 5 years at least, while Street Fighter is also going on in parallel. So
Mhm.
yeah, there is, and they added new background music. You can like change your tent to have Poke Village or Burna Village, which I'm sure is going to do really well for them because people love those songs. So yeah, they
Yeah,
added
I
a
mean,
lot
I
of
have the
DLC
Poke
also.
Village theme, so yeah,
I
Yeah,
forget where
yeah,
I saw
exactly.
this, but I saw a fun thing where it was like comparing the different handlers, like the Monster Hunter World's handler, like super exuberant, a little annoying, but excitable. Monster Hunter Rise, or sorry, let me skip over to Wilds, where it's like almost very polite, very caring. She obviously shows a lot of deference to the younger characters. And then it's like the two Iverians and Rise, like they will fight for you, they will kill the monster if you're too slow,
yeah,
sort
yeah.
of thing. Like,
They're
Yeah.
awesome.
like they won't wait for you if you're holding them back. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
valid.
hmm Um,
That's probably my favorite update. Having only played these three games, is like all the partner stuff that they added in Sunbreak, with all the
yeah,
different
that is cool.
NPCs.
It is cool.
Mm.
Yeah.
Um, if you really want to annoy yourself or others who are hunting with you in Wilds now, they also added new cosmetics for the pendants where they're not really like
Oh
attachments to your
man,
weapons.
those
They're like
stupid
fairies.
fairies.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so they
they're
have
so
colored
annoying.
fairies. They're really bright. They float around you. They when you're spinning around, they'll always be behind you, and you just like they're so obnoxious. And of course, I had to put one on because part of the review code was like you got the super expensive edition for
Yeah.
free, so I put it on
I,
and
I
just like to annoy myself and others.
I did this
Yeah,
for Monster Hunter Rise because you remember they had this the Japanese Monster Hunter account had that comic series with this very stylized version of the Hunter and the Palico and the Palamute, which was this weird deformed comic thing. And
yeah.
I think that got so popular they sold it as paid DLC. And I just bought that immediately because everyone was like, "This looks so ugly. Why would anyone use it?" I said, "Okay, time for me to use it."
Yeah.
And I still have that on my Switch save. Like I always hunt with that.
uh,
Yeah,
Fuck, man, I hate the fairies so much. So of course I have to make sure everyone's annoyed with me too.
yeah.
But yeah, that's title update one in a nutshell, and they're gonna add more over time. Like the big next thing they're gonna add soon is the arc tempered Raidou fight, which is I'm interested to see how that.
Just a couple of release dates here. You'll have to tell me what this is, Josh. SD Gundam G Generation Eternal will
Yeah, that
launch on April 16th.
it is a mobile gacha game for the SD Gundam G Generation series. That series is all about the development trees. So like you can like have you can field like a grunt units like all Zaku's or all Zagoks, and then you level them up, and then you can choose like a different like Pokemon almost, like choose like different evolutions for them. So you can like uh get like a more super a better model of Zaku, which then it can eventually be evolved into like Char Zaku, which you can like then like evolve into other different suits, like maybe like other highly advanced like Char suits, like to like the Zazabi or the Nightingale from like it's basically the Pokemon in the sense that like you start out with grunts, you field them, you level them up, and then you can put them into other. You have like split branching paths with like different mobile suits that you can evolve them to, which will you then level up, and then have split branching paths to develop them into better mobile suits, and so forth. So G Generation Eternal is the mobile game version of that, but some of the suits you can gotcha, of course, and you'll have different rarities. But also in the game, like you can go through stages and like farm stages to like get grunt suits, which you can level up and like level them up and then evolve into different mobile suits. So you can like there's like an alternative path to like playing this game where you can be as gotcha free as possible, where you can just like kind of grind endlessly for like uh to level up run suits to you know get explore the development tree and level them up into like better mobile suits. So I'm interested. I like the G Generation series. I played a closed beta to this some months ago, and I didn't hate it, but I'm very wary of it. But but it's also like this game will add more suits over time, and it already has like deep cuts of like mobile suits that haven't really appeared in any of the other Gundam games, and like I'm kind of resentful to it in a sense that like I have to give it a shot because like it's doing that where it's like has some deep cuts to it. Fuck. God damn it. So, I'll check it out. I'm dumb enough. I'll check it out.
Mhm. And the last thing we have here is that Yasha: Legends of the Demon Blade is delayed once again to May 15th. It was going to release at the end of April on April 24th. It was also going to release in March. It was also going to release last year at some point. The new date is May 15th.
The most delayed game in recent memory.
Mhm.
Don't say that. Fantasy Life is like it still has to ship.
Oh, that's true
Mhm.
too. Yeah, they're in the running.
When did Level 5 say that all their games were going to release in 2023? And then nope, 2024, and then nope.
Yeah,
It might have been TGS 2022, maybe.
Will
yeah,
Vampire the
they're like,
Masquerade launch this year too?
ooh, shit.
That's another one, yeah.
The funny thing about Level 5 is they showed Professor Layton, the new Layton game, has a Switch 2 edition and an upgrade path, which is listed on the Japanese website. But Fantasy Life, which when they showed for Nintendo Switch, it looked like it ran like ass. And
Yeah,
that
they're
does not have
directing.
any
Yeah.
mention of
Oh,
like
that's
what is
weird.
going
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, I don't know. That I would assume they're working on a Switch 2 version of that, but haven't announced yet. You would hope so, because
Like
the two.
who wants a Switch 2 update for Professor Layton but not Fantasy Life or like Megaton Musashi? Like, that game is so well optimized even on Switch, it would easily do like 4K 60 on Switch 2. Like what are they doing? Like who
Well,
wants
I
it
mean,
for Layton?
I mean, they're working on so many projects, and a lot of them, I think all of them are like multi-platform, cross-play, cross-progression. That they have a lot on their hands. Hopefully, they can sort it out. They also have a new live stream for Inazuma 11 Victory Road soon, like on April 11th, I believe, where they're finally gonna announce like its final release date and final specs for it. I imagine that's where they're gonna announce a Switch 2 version of that game
That
there
makes
as well.
sense. That makes
So,
sense.
so yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what they have to announce there.
Well, thank you once again, Adam, for basically spearheading all of our varied talk on Switch 2 and just everyone present, um, including Chow and James that had to step out a little early. Just to all of us to get in here and try to like reason what do we know for sure, what is still kind of up in the air, what is like we think it's this but it's not clear because it's been a little bit of a messy data release for everything regarding this. Not all Nintendo's fault, but in a lot of ways, it feels like it could have been presented or packaged a little bit more cleanly. But of course, as things become clearer as we get closer to that June 5th release date, we will, of course, let you know. We're still obviously excited to see what else Intelligent Systems and potentially Monolith Soft are working on. Almost certainly the next time we'll hear about this is the wherever this Adam doesn't this launch like the day after Summer Games Fest's
The
first
day
day or something
before.
like that? Day before. So, and obviously, usually around that time, Nintendo will have some sort of summer direct. So I'm guessing they'll have that somehow coincided with the console launch. We'll just have to wait and see, and play it by ear based on whenever that lines up. Of course, we have already a lot to look forward to in that time frame, like the Raidou remastered and things like that. So we do have all those features and news all up on the site. Yeah, Adam has his little hands-on preview. And Adam, I know you said you kind of not struggled with it, but it wasn't really something you could really put a huge RPG slant on. But
No,
you did what you
just
could based
there
on,
wasn't that many RPGs to play, So
and a few that
Uh,
were announced, you just like couldn't get hands-on, like Bravely Default or
right.
even like Remake on Switch, things like
we
that.
still thank Nintendo for giving us the opportunity to fly you out there and
Yeah,
check
for
it out.
sure. Mm. So we have that feature up on the site. We've got the all the story of a seasons preview interview up on the site. We've got Mikhail's Saga Frontier 2 remastered console comparison up. I didn't talk about this, but the also Kaino Kaseki recently announced to be releasing in the West this fall as Trails Beyond the Horizon. You took the PC port and compared it to or played it on the ROG Ally. This is is it
The
a
Clouded
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 Leopard.
Leopard
Leopard? Yeah.
Yeah,
version.
so
So
this was before they announced the localization, and because I got busy with other work, I was like, okay, I'll get to it. And then I finally started working on it, and 2 days later, NIS America announced it. And I'm like, why now? Just wait a bit.
mm,
So I had to put this clarification in the story, like more of it actually, that this is not the version which NIS will release. This is not Durante's port. And the reason
mm,
is because, they started porting some of Falcom's games long ago, and the ports were pretty bad back then, but they've improved considerably, at least for the trail stuff. So that
Yeah,
was
I was
like
about
an
to say, didn't
interesting.
they release East 10 and then
Yeah, yeah,
unrelease it?
yeah. They had to unrelease it. Yeah, The Trails has been good though, but yeah.
Mhm. Well, yeah, I just saw that listed here and want to at least give it a shout out that you do have a comparison for the existing PC port for the Japanese version of the game.
Brian, I can't believe
so
you
can
left
look at that.
out the news that the Hyperdimension Neptunia series is coming to PS4.
Oh yeah, that's something.
That's weird. That's weird.
I didn't do it deliberately. I just
You're
that did not
overloaded.
cross my there. Whatever.
You're
It's
overloaded.
very quickly. It's just a very weird port because it was announced for Switch, and then they're like, actually, nope, this isn't happening. And they were asked, like, all right, what about the PS4 version? You're releasing it for PS4 in Japan. Are you going to release it for PS4 in the West? The answer was, no. And now they are.
Yeah, and I don't. We might have mentioned
Okay.
it in passing, but I don't think I explicitly gave air to Zenless Zone Zero. It's going to have an Xbox version. Just
Well, they
like
haven't really
Genshin
given any
does.
details on it yet, other than that it's coming.
So
So
gotcha. But yeah, obviously, big thanks to Mikhail for covering most of this news. I do know everyone all like chipped in, but Mikhail's definitely been kind of the spearhead on all that because it's been a busy 2.5 weeks. Thank you, Nintendo. Adam, of course, for covering everything on the during your trip. Of course, we're not too far removed from your and James's trip earlier to GDC, and all those previews are up on the west site as well. You can find RPG Site on all the social media networks. Just search for RPG Space Site, and you should be able to find us. Join the Discord, discord.gg/RPG Site. If you've listened to this Tetracast on whatever podcast service of choice or directly on the website, leave us a rating, a like, a comment. We do love to see those. I'm not sure what we'll be talking about next week. Let me pull up the release calendar and see what we're looking at like mid-April. I know we're still a week plus away from Mandragora. Adam, do we have anyone covering Mandragora?
I requested it, haven't gotten it yet. So I don't know.
Oh, okay. So maybe. A big maybe. We also have, let's see, Progress Orders, April 10th. I know that one.
Chow will play it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe.
He's not even
Bushy
here to defend
Roads.
himself.
No, no. He can't turn it down.
Oh, I think James is checking out Promise Mascot Agency and maybe Mikhail too. So
I am.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
All right.
I mean,
So
if we're all desperate, I've been playing that Madoka turn-based RPG.
the what?
I'm
The
stuck.
Madoka Magica
I-
turn-based RPG.
yeah, I'm still working my
The
way through
Honkai Star
Xenoblade
Rail.
Cross, which I'm enjoying a lot. So that's where I've been last couple of weeks.
I had to put that on hold, and I'm super over leveled. Apparently, I'm level 35 in chapter 3. So,
You should at least get to chapter 4 and get like overdrive. Come on.
oh, I have overdrive, so maybe I am in
Oh,
chapter 4 then.
okay. I
Yeah,
might
I'm
be
still
Maybe
working
I
my
haven't
way through
started
that
chapter
too.
5. Yeah.
I have been procrastinating a little bit too because I've been playing other stuff.
Well, for me, it feels good because it's been like on my backlog for years. Like I'll play that other Xenoblade game one day, and it
I'm
feels
trying
nice.
my
I'm back
best to
doing
get through it and not get spoiled on the new stuff. That's my
Mm.
main concern. Is I'm still relatively spoiler free, but more and more of my friends are starting to get there. I'm like, shut the fuck up.
I will say, is the one closing comment to this long podcast is have someone that's not really super like I don't really know what's new and what's not, other than the clearly like the epilogue stuff will be more clear. But like the new characters, Adam, remind me, it's Neil Null and Lisel. Are those
Yes.
the two new ones?
Yes.
So I will say that Neil Null or whatever it is, Neil.
Yeah.
She kind of fits in like in a way where if I wasn't teed off, I could say like I can't tell if she's new or not. Like she's integrated pretty well. Lizelle, I don't know. There's something about her that just seems like nope. This is definitely added later. The fact that she has her own like unique like riding outfit that she gives you a skull when she joins you.
And also the pretty choreographed cutscene when you meet her. Like, why does she get a
Yeah.
cutscene?
Yeah.
So
she feels a little bit more like
this is definitely
DX something
additional
or whatever.
Yeah.
If you heard my dog, sorry about that. He barked at something. But
Reggie.
yeah,
The scale.
there you go. But yeah, thank you all so much for listening. We'll obviously cover Nintendo Switch news as details come to light or as things are elucidated on or made clear as we get closer to launch. And of course, as it launches, we'll talk about all the stuff pertinent to us. And maybe Switch 2 will become a mainstay of Mikhail's console comparisons. going forward. I assume that'll be the case.
Hopefully.
So thank you all so much for listening. Until you hear from us next week, stay safe, take care, and we'll talk to y'all later.